We are currently live here on Twitch. I'm live with Gareth Davies, formerly of Funeral for a Friend. Um, Welcome. It's very much appreciated that you are here. Um, you know, just want to know, Gareth, what's on your mind? What's how's your day going? Like, let's start there.
Day good. Day's good. Day's winding down. There's a plethora of alcohol here at this point for me to be able to feel like have a couple of sips with you for the next couple of hours. Thank you very much. I
Cool.
appreciate it. No, my day's been painless. It's been good. It's been all right.
Awesome, man. Awesome. I'm glad to hear. So what's the weather out like over there right now? Because it absolutely
Uh,
sucks here in New England.
I mean, define sucks. I mean, talking temperature? Because I live in Vegas, so it's miserable outside already.
Okay, so you live in Vegas and it's nice, but right over here right now is sort of like I would expect, like the UK, how it rains a lot, apparently.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
That's what we
yeah,
got going
okay.
on right now over here.
There's a reason why I'm that part of the reason why I came to Vegas was the weather. Like um I've been here now for well, since 2007, so math, I'm like 14 years. Um and I'm still hydrated from the amount of rain that I got when I lived in the UK because it was just a torrential downpour for basically 22 years. So like the weather here has been like spring in this city is pretty great. Like that you I'm we're already at probably high 80s in the middle of the day, and in the night it's just let's open the windows and just let the cool breeze just kind of blow through here. But it's great, it's good. But I've got 2 weeks of that and it'll be 115 and then I can never go outside ever again. So it's just about how you gotta weigh your pros and cons out of it.
Oh,
Winter on Christmas Day, I was wearing a hoodie. Like that's it. Like I
really?
just a light hoodie. Yeah, on a light hoodie in the winter, and then just deathly miserable heat is all in throughout for 4 months of the year.
But at least it's dry heat though, right? It's not like over here you have to
Yeah,
chew the fucking air.
yeah. There is that. However, nobody like the oven is also a dry heat, and nobody ever opens the oven and goes like that's not a thing either, right? Like so. You've got like it's miserable no matter how you cut it. Like it's the difference between this you feel like you wear the sun and I feel like it's just right here. Like it's just there and it's just a lot. But listen, like that's I'm content with that. I can deal with that after being in the UK and the wet valleys of Wales for as many years as I was.
So is that where a lot of the music came from? Was the weather as well?
Um I mean, it's where a lot of the UK's binge drinking comes from.
That's-
But I think with that comes um, a camaraderie that tends to get struck up a bunch amongst groups of people. I think that's fair to say. Um, like we'll jump into like conversations that I'm like musical background, I guess. So like my musical career started like and learning to become a musician, learning to play came from just open mic nights in pubs, right? And
Really?
just like yeah, absolutely. Like there's a pub in Pontypridd, which is this small little town that I'm from, and it was called the Master's Arms, and it's still standing there today. I believe someone's going to correct me on the internet. I'm sure. Um, but they would have an open mic night every Thursday night. And like me and a couple of the guys that I was learning to like be in a band with, like we would roll in there and we would go in and play a bunch of cover songs, and then like we were too young to drink most of the time, so we would just leave afterwards. Um, but that's where like I learned to play. Like was like it was in my bedroom when I wasn't in school. I was in my bedroom learning to play, and then when I got tired of being in there, it was like, okay, Thursday night, let's go play with a bunch of people that actually know how to play. Um, which was fascinating. It was a very different way of because it's the valleys of South Wales. There wasn't much else going on really. It was
That's
like
pretty fucking
yeah,
cool
stay
that you
busy.
started out in pubs, man.
I mean, for the most part, yeah. Like yeah, that's how every like it starts as a covers band, like just goofing off and playing local shows and doing your thing, and then um And then before you know it, it turns into something vastly different. And you're like, Jesus, how did that happen?
So the music you were playing, so the start, so normally I'm like, hey, what are the past bands you've been? So your start playing in pubs and things like that. What was the music style you're playing? So what was that like? What was the genre for that?
I mean, yeah, I mean, like I said, like at that point, it was mostly covers. So it was like Radiohead songs. It was just whatever would just get people to clap by the time you finished playing, because you just didn't want to stand into silence at the end as you look like you're 16 years old. You know, that destroys your character, destroys your musical career before you've even started. Character building is what people refer to it. Soul destroying.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But it's necessary. Like everyone has to go through it. But I think that it is. You've got to pay close attention to like the surrounding environments that you're in, right? So like there's a lot going on there. What was the question? Hit me again.
It was what was like the style really of music you were playing
Oh yes,
during that
yeah. So
time?
it was covers and indie music for the most part. Like the indie music for the people that I was hanging out with. It was me and two of my best friends at the time in a covers band for the most part, and then we started writing original tunes, but it was still rock-ish. Like I guess like it rock or indie was my background.
Okay.
And I met Darren, who was the guitar player in Funeral for a Friend, was the DJ on these open mic nights on a Thursday night.
Who's the fucking
So
DJ?
he was the rock DJ. Like he was DJing at these places.
Okay.
So Darren was in a different band at the time called Trip Cage. I was in a band called Watershed, and we were there every week. So we just kind of got to strike up a rapport, and I would always pester him for the same damn Incubus songs, like for him to play every single week. Like that's just the way it was. So then eventually Darren was like, you know, he was like, oh, I'm leaving Trip Cage. And I was like, oh, that's like, are you leaving for something else? He's like, yeah, sure. He's like, yeah. He's like, I've got, I found another bunch of guys that I'm playing with. He's like, I'll play you something. We're recording soon. I was like, cool. So they recorded a couple of demos in his garage. And then he came to the Masters that one Thursday night. And he's like, here, give this a listen. And he played me like 2 songs. And the first thing I noticed was like, oh, Jesus, the singer can really sing. Because finding a really great singer is difficult. Like it's not easy work. Like it's one thing that you can find people that can sing,
mm-hmm.
but you're looking for people that can write melodies. Like that's not the same. Like writing a hook and being able to sing are 2 different things. I can sing. I can't write a hook if my life depended on it. Like there's no chance. So that I remember playing, like him pressing play, and it was a tape deck, and I'm just listening to this tape, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, this kid can sing. Like this guy's got a really great voice. And then it just turned into a conversation every single week. Then like I was just like, how's the band? 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 I was just curious. At this point, I was just starting university. Hey, come on. Sorry, dog's popping off.
No worries.
At this point, I was in university. In my first year of university, just starting to study a music technology degree. So basically going in and learning how to operate a recording studio was my goal. Like okay. I want to be involved in that space because I was a terrible musician, like terrible musician.
I was when I was like 8, like when I played in the local scene around here, I was hot fucking garbage. So I started out as a guitarist. And then literally one of the main reasons I was okay with switching to bass is like, it's okay. I could be like cool, like the Funeral for a Friend guys, or I could be like, you know, I could be like, you know, the dude in Killswitch Engage is really cool that plays bass. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I'm thinking of all these people at the same time that were on the same genre ish, and I had to convince myself like, okay, I'm not a guitarist, but I can definitely play bass. So
I started by learning to play the guitar, and there was just no bass players. Like nobody played bass. Like, so I was just like, oh, well, I'll just save the money I'm earning on my paper round every weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I'll buy a bass eventually. I was repeating this story to somebody recently, to my boss actually. And I'll never forget the day that bass arrived. So it was a black P bass, Squire P bass, with a white pick guard, silver knobs. And I remember it because I ordered it and it was like, you'll get 48-hour shipping, because that was unheard of like when I was that old.
Wow.
Like, and it was like, I was like, it'll be at my door in 48 hours. It's amazing. So I was in school and I ran home. The guitar was sitting there in my room, and I remember ripping it open, and I had to run back to school because we practiced at school. We practiced, like, our rehearsal space was basically the theater in the school. And I was running and I dropped the guitar and just destroyed the bot, like just literally scratched the crap out of it. I was devastated, absolutely crushed, absolutely crushed. I still have that bass. It's back. It's in the UK. It's in a closet in the UK, my parents' house.
That's awesome.
But yeah, like the same scratches, the same stickers, like everything's still on it. Like, it's so funny. But yeah, anyway, I digress. So going back to the original question, I grew up as an indie kid for the most part. Like, I was listening to indie bands and like a lot of mainstream rock for the most part.
What were indie bands like over there?
I mean, like Oasis, The Verve.
Oh, okay, okay.
Like the indie music scene, right?
Okay.
So like it was 90s Britpop for the most part, like a pop rock, like Britpop rock. It was Britpop. Blur, freaking Ocean Color Scene, like a whole bunch of different bands. But I still had a penchant for heavier music. I would still listen to Metallica or Megadeth, and like my musical spectrum was fairly varied, which was decent, but I played mostly indie. So it got to a point where I was in university and I was learning to study this thing, and I was like, Funeral for a Friend was already a band. Like, they were already in existence, right? And they had a couple of shows coming up, and I was like, I wonder if, let me just ask. And I was like, do you want somebody to come and mix your sound for you on these shows? And they were like, sure, why not? They had a couple of opening shows with I can't remember. I think it was Earth Tone 9. Now that I think about it, it was a British band called Earth Tone 9. Highly recommended if you've never heard of Earth Tone 9. Like, go back and revisit. It's excellent.
Okay.
There's that the long-standing connection there. It's good though. So they were playing a show at the Nottingham Old Angel, and I went to, and it's a 200 capacity club, and they're playing to very, very few people, but I drove up with them and like enjoyed their company, like met the guys, enjoyed the tunes. Thought the songs they had were great. They only had 4 songs at the time, like the first 4 songs they ever wrote, which basically turned into the very first EP.
Okay.
So that they only had 4 songs. So 1045, Amsterdam Conversations, The Art of American Football, Red is the New Black, and Juno.
Okay.
The first 4 songs the band ever wrote.
Holy shit, all bangers.
Yeah, like,
so literally you were listening to that tape going like, so
I'm listening to this from the outside looking in, going, this is fucking ridiculous. This is so great.
Wow.
And like listening to, and again, like Matt's voice was probably the clincher for me, where I was just like, this guy's just got a pair of pipes on him. Like, he can just handle his tone, which is rare. It's not easy to find again. So I'm at this point, I'm just consistently showing up to shows, and like I'm starting to hang out with them a little bit more. There's a little bit more conversation. And then the bass player Andy was going on vacation, and the boys had a couple of shows booked, and they're like, I will just cancel the shows. And I was like, I'll play, like, I'll figure it out. Like, I said, we'll do a rehearsal the day of, and like, it's 4 songs. Like, we'll just knock out 4 tunes. It'll be great. 2 shows later, and I was asked to stay, which I was thoroughly excited to be a part of. Right. So by this point, like, you need to understand how quickly that timeline occurred.
So that timeline is fucking ridiculous. Just saying, like, starting from 2001 and then going up to 2003, it looked like you guys were holding a lightning rod. It seemed like everything was extremely quick once 2003 hit.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, once you got to, well, it was extremely quick prior to that. So 2000, probably 2000, late 2001, 2002, I think. My memory's terrible for this as well, so you got to remember, It's been a long time. This gray hair is like, it's real. Like, the gray hair is real. So I'm trying to remember the timeline of events. So I joined the band, and the first EP had already been recorded.
Yep.
So so the timeline on that was the band's recording studio was Atom Studios,
Mhm.
which coincidentally had its own independent record label on site.
Oh,
So that wasn't known at the time. Like, it was Mighty Atom was the name of the record label, and Atom Studios was the name of the studio.
okay.
And I hope I'm not butchering this. One of the boys can call me and correct me if I'm inaccurate here, because again, this is before my time. So the guys went in to record. Roger, who was the owner of Mighty Atom Records at the time, is in an office down the hall, like 2-3 doors away, and they get into a conversation around doing a 1,000 copies release of the EP and splitting the profits 50-50. So I join before it's released, but only by a couple of weeks.
Okay.
So they do, I think they print 1,000 copies. They send X amount out to the press, and the rest go to the shelves of independent record stores. The press gets a hold of the EP. Rock Sound is the first magazine to kind of post anything about the band, and like gives the EP like a glowing review. I don't remember if it was a 5-star review or not, but I remember it being very impressive and being like, oh shit, like this is like something stirring here. This is interesting. And before you know it, it was a bunch of different places. So before you know it, like all of a sudden people were starting to come to the shows that we were attending. You're like, wait, what's going on? Like, this is moving like this is moving really quick. Like, this is the first 4 songs the band's ever written. Like, we don't have any more tunes right now. Like, we haven't even had a chance to sit down and write. So there's like bits and pieces of songs laying around, and like in between these little like mini shows and mini tours that we're doing, because things are starting to ramp up really quickly. Like we get a little bit of time to write in between, but not much. So going back to the Earth Tone 9 reference for those original shows that I was doing sound for, Owen Packard was the guitar player for Earth Tone 9. Also had a small independent PR company and he was looking after a bunch of different artists already. So he kind of took us under his wing a bit. And Owen was a lifesaver for us, because things started to move so fast. Like, we were on, before we knew it, we were the opening act, pulling in a larger crowd than some of the headliners that we were opening for, which was super bizarre and weird. And like, again, lightning in a bottle. Like, that shit just doesn't happen. It just doesn't, right? Like, it's years of slog and tolling and like digging away. And we just did all of that in different bands. We did all of that first. And then it feels like it kind of fell into our laps for the most part. Like, we caught, so the EP comes out, 1,000 copies sells out in like 2 minutes. So they print another 1,000 copies, which sells out almost immediately again. I think I might be making these numbers up. So I gotta be careful. But I think the final count was like I think we eventually released it to 10,000 copies, and we just couldn't keep it in stock on the shelves, which is crazy. So we're doing these like all of a sudden now major record labels are starting to pay attention. Now the press is paying very close attention to what's happening. So things move really quickly from there. It feels like really quickly. Like from the very first day, there's a conversation about a major record label to signature. Was about 11 months. Yeah, which was insane.
The fuck?
Yeah, insane. That's like, and there's a lot of conversation with major record labels at that time, and they're going, "Do you have enough material for an album?" And we're like, "Yeah, yes, we do." Looking at each other, going, "No, we don't." Like, we'll figure this out when we get there, I guess. So during this time, now it's like, okay, like now we've got to write. Like, now we've got to start getting that done. So we had our rehearsal space at the time was a like a community church hall. Like there's a church, and then there's just this church hall, and we
Yep.
were allowed to practice. We could practice there. We could practice there on weekends, but not between the hours of 9 and 12 on a Sunday. Like we'd have to go in early, and it was far enough into the valleys that it wasn't necessarily like the volume wasn't disturbing anybody. So I remember going in early, stopping for church service, waiting for church to kind of like watching everyone roll out of church, and then starting to play the Devil's Rock again, which was hysterical.
That's
It's
so
always
awesome.
entertaining for us. It's so great. But yeah, like that's when we started to write records. Like it got wild from there, and that's about 2 years in, I don't know, the 22 minutes I've just talked straight for. I don't know.
So,
That brings us to like writing Casually Dressed and Deep in Conversation, at least.
So like getting to Casually Dressed, right before Casually Dressed, you guys played Concrete Jungle, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
like what the fuck was that like to go from playing these shows where you guys were like not out competing. I don't want to say it like in a negative manner or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Of course.
But I mean like the headliner was not bringing in the fucking people you were bringing in. Like that blows my mind. That
So crazy. And it's funny. Like I forget Concrete Jungle was a thing, but that was probably the first like, oh fuck moment of like we are up to here in this now.
Yep.
Like this isn't a hobby anymore.
No.
So we were the opening act on the Concrete Jungle stage. So for those that don't know, the Concrete Jungle stage is kind of the punk hardcore emo stage of Reading and Leeds Festival in UK, which is the UK's biggest music festival. It has like 90,000+ people. It's pandemonium.
God damn.
Which is crazy. So we're the opening act, which means we're going on stage at noon, right? Like there are people still hungover from the night before that are still sleeping in the tents that are not coming into the show yet. So, like it is 11:58, right? Like gates open right at 12. And we're supposed to be on stage right at 12 o'clock. We're supposed to be playing as people are coming in. It's like we're the entrance band for the event. It's like people are just listening to us as they go to watch other artists. That's the vibe that you get from it as an artist standing there with an empty tent, going, "We're on in 60 seconds." Like there's literally nobody here. And the gates open. We get them to stall for like 3 minutes. I'm not clear on the numbers again. I don't remember how many people were held in that tent, but I know that it was 5 to probably 10 to 12 rows deep outside of the tent to come and watch us play.
So it went
and that's
from
when
empty
we were like,
to fucking Helm's Deep from Lord
nothing.
Of the Rings?
Yeah, basically, yeah. It went from nothing to I can't see people's eyes anymore. Like it's just a blur of faces in no time at all. And we played 20 minutes, maybe. Like we had 4 songs. So that's 4 punk songs for the most part, 4 punk or post-hardcore songs. So done in less than 3 minutes. So you can just imagine just how much banter and just like shit talking there was on stage. Like I don't remember the show. I remember walking off stage going, what just happened? Because it was like people were bouncing off the walls. That was the very first like, oh, okay, like we're onto something here. Like now we've got to be smart, and now we've got to really play our cards right. Because it changed everything.
You were ahead. You were way ahead because no one had the. I don't want to say emo because I feel like that's like fucking kitty cornering a lot of bands. But
listen, that's what it was.
Yeah, it was like emo post-hardcore with the gallop. I think that's what really intrigued a lot of people was like you guys were doing the Iron Maiden style gallop in a post-hardcore band, and it was getting the attention of fucking everyone over here. So like
weird, right?
Yeah, it was very weird because me and my friends, we were super into like the Black Dahlia Murder, and we were super into Metallica, as you can tell, and a lot of other heavy bands, but like I loved everything. I was into, Boxcar Racer, and I listened to pop punk, and I listened to, but like with you guys, it was one of those things where it was very weird, where it was like, can we mix these two genres? Oh, They fucking can. They definitely can.
They certainly tried, right?
No. It wasn't even no, Gareth. You guys accomplished it. So a lot of people over here fucking
Appreciate
mimicked
that.
it. A lot of people mimicked it because they were like, "This is such a different." Think about like the Beatles coming from across the pond. I'm not trying to equate Funeral for a Friend to the Beatles, and also like
Listen,
you know what I mean. Like I'm not a huge
no, I get
Beatles
it.
fan, and a lot of people give me shit for that. But like, it's one of those things where it's finding a foundation for a music genre that was just starting to get like, I'm sure that A Day to Remember would probably have something to say that said like, oh yeah, we listened to Funeral for a Friend when we started. Like the hardcore breakdown in the post hardcore emo, you know what I mean? Like,
Right. And none of it was intentional either. It's not like we sat and planned to write those kinds of things. Listen, I'm fairly convinced still to a certain extent, and I might be giving myself more credit than necessary here. But if anybody wants to blame the softening of Funeral for a Friend over the years on anybody, it's me. It'll be me, right?
Why would be that?
Because I was the indie kid, right? Like I don't understand that genre of music necessarily. I didn't grow up listening to it, right? Like I didn't know who a lot of these bands were until I joined Funeral for a Friend, and we were in a van, and then something would go on, and I'd be like, "Who is this?" They'd be like, "This is Coheed and Cambria." I'd be like, "Okay, cool. Like I'm gonna spend my time absorbing this," right? Like so, I got to experience the scene as it was growing at the same time with the people it was growing with. Like that was my learns. Like I didn't get to like grow up and listen to these bands and pursue them and put their posters on my wall. I actually got to stand there and talk to them. So like I greatly appreciate that opportunity because some of those people are like good friends of mine to this day, which is great. And there are some people that I never want to meet ever again. But like that's how that works. Like I've had these experiences with these people, and I grew up watching the scene change and move really, really quickly. Like, and I got to see it from the stage, which was very, very bizarre.
So to me, like, it's funny that you mentioned Coheed and Cambria when you said that. So
Right.
like it was, and this is no bullshit. It was Coheed and Cambria was my number one band, and it still is from the time I was 13 years old. I'm 33.
Cool.
So 20 years of listening to Claudio Sanchez, and
I get that.
so it was Coheed and Cambria, you guys, and Under Oath were the three fucking bands
Really?
that
Okay.
I listen. And then like when everything changed with Under Oath recently, and then they got heavier again and more, and I was like, this is awesome. It's taking me back to that time period of being 13.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you grow up, yeah, but you never want to grow up musically. So it's almost like when we would give our parents shit when you're like, what the fuck are you listening to? You know what I mean? Like I have so much more appreciation for it because it's like my mom tortured me with fucking ABBA every Saturday and Sunday cleaning my house. So it was like so like
my parents didn't have to go through that, because I'd moved out and was in a band by the time I was listening to all of these artists that were a little bit more angsty and pissed off and angry, right? Like, so yeah, my parents got off so easy with that. Don't get me wrong, I listened to my music loud and I jumped around my bedroom like I was performing shows. So like and it's a 2-bedroom house in the UK. It's basically it's a smaller house, you know. So you can hear mice fart from the other corner of the place if you needed to. It's just the walls are so thin is my point. But so it's funny, like all of your favorite artists growing up were mine as my profession, which was bizarre. Like that was like I was listening to the Used as I was standing there on tour with them, like for the very first time and thrice. Yeah, it was like it's such a different. I think my take and outlook on that scene was vastly different because I was viewing it as a fan, right? And it's I really appreciate what you said, and thanks for the kind words about putting us in that scene, because for me it was always them and then us. Like it never felt like I always felt like we would be chasing, like we were chasing the Used, we were chasing Thrice, we were chasing those bands, and we weren't necessarily on the same plane because I was a fan of theirs. So I couldn't look at our work objectively, and I still can't. Like I still listen to those artists today, like without any hesitation. Like I could put any one of their records on and I could sing you every fucking word. Like because I was a fan of those tunes, and I was a fan of them as artists, and I'm privileged that I get to call some of them friends. Like, I'm really excited to see what Atreyu are about to drop. Like,
Oh, I
oh, dude,
cannot
like,
wait,
don't
dude.
even get me
I
started. So
can't
excited,
wait.
so excited.
Yeah.
Like, and that's a pivotal change. Like, they're going through a pretty key change, but
I like to see progression, though. I mean, I'm sure you do too. Everyone evolves. Everyone gets older. It's one of those things. You have to accept that band for who they are, and they're doing their job. Their job is to be a musician. And if they're going to evolve and change, like you joked around saying, like, if you can blame Funeral for a Friend for getting softer, it was me. No, it's a fucking good thing. Like, everyone needs to have input in a band. If it starts being a one-man show, it's not a fucking band. It's not a band.
For sure. Yeah, 100%, 100%. And you know, and like I said, like, I'm probably giving myself a little bit more credit than necessary there, but because the guys could have told me to just shut up as a bass player, you know. Like, I've just been like, okay. Because everybody knows the difference between a bass player and a toilet, correct?
What's that?
Is a toilet only has to take shit from one asshole at a time.
That resonates so
it's
much
basically
with me.
It does as a bass player. I know you know it's, we have an understanding. All bass players have an understanding.
One of the things, and my buddy Lance, he listens to this all the time. So a lot of people in our local scene have been listening lately, and it's very much appreciated. I appreciate everyone that listens.
Of course.
Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, I really appreciate you giving me your time. So that's one of the things, is like, people are fucking busy, and it was really funny because you're like, is anyone gonna even remember? Of course people are gonna remember you, because the albums that you were a part of were the crucial part of the scene taking off in that trajectory. You know what I mean? So it was one of those things. But my friend Lance laughs all the time because I'll always just bring up random things on the podcast / interview, and
okay, what have you got?
It resonates with a lot of people, like saying, like, okay, so like when you came over here, so we'll skip ahead, but we're gonna go back to some stuff. But when you came over here and you started seeing fast food in America, what was your first fucking thought? Because this is the first time I'm interviewing someone that's not originally from here. So it's like, I want to know what you're going to think, because I'm sure my friend Lance is going to be like, he probably thought we were fucking ridiculous with the sizes of things and the options and the fact that everything's 24 fucking hours. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I live in Vegas now. If you want to talk about a 24-hour city, like, nothing ever closes, right? So, so my first trip to the US wasn't with Funeral for a Friend, ironically. My first trip to the US was with my parents to Disneyland when I was like 15 or 16 years old.
Okay.
So like I'd had a little bit of exposure to America and Denny's more specifically. Like, we ate I just remember every fucking meal being eaten at Denny's, like moons over my hammy, like 3 times a day. Like, it was just like, if I have cholesterol now, it's from that trip still. So I think, yeah, like my first American fast food experiences were like, it was Denny's, Wendy's, like McDonald's, obviously, right? And it just McDonald's was available in the UK. Denny's wasn't a thing in the UK. So yeah, like, fast food in America was just fast food. It was all I could afford at the time. So I was like, this is as good as it's gonna get. Like, soak it up. I loved it. It was great. But yeah, it was portion control. Like, it's portions is what it is. Unlimited refills on sodas. You know, in the UK, you buy every soda you drink.
Really?
If you're at dinner and you finish your soda, you're buying another soda. You're not getting it for free.
That's fucking hilarious and awesome.
So I grew up on, like, once you finish your drink, that's the end of your drink. Like, you don't get to drink anything else. That's that, unless you choose to purchase more. So yeah, when I was like, I can refill this Coke as many times as I like. Wait, what's happening here? I feel like I'm stealing. Like that's my biggest culture shock. That's really disappointing. No, for me, fast food in the United States comes in a variety of shapes and formats. Like, it's like, like, there's really good fast food in this country, and it is basically cat meat, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, it's just awful.
When it comes out of a fucking caulking gun at some places, you're like, yeah, I'm out. It's
not gonna work.
Yeah,
it's not gonna work. favorite fast, like, should we, I'll go with the favorite, I'll transition at the favorite fast food eateries. Should we shoot for that? I'm a Five Guys burger guy. Five Guys burgers and fries.
100% agree with that, but you also have In-N-Out.
Yes, I do. And In-N-Out is, of course, listen, it's about the sides, right?
Like, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Like, everybody here, and you know, I'm not going to be too controversial because I'm going to save your comment thread. But In-N-Out's French fries are the worst French fries of any fast food of all time.
Thank you. They're soggy as shit. They are soggy as shit.
Soggy or cremated. Like, they're either soggy or basically dust. Like, I can't, like, but a 3x3, like a 3x3 sandwich, 3x3 sandwich, like, it's tough to beat as far as In-N-Out is concerned. Like, that's a really, really good burger. The double bacon cheeseburger from Five Guys, though, and the fries, like I want, if I'm gonna eat fast food, I want the brown bag they hand it to me to be greasy in seconds, and Five Guys delivers on that every time.
That's like, the best part about that place.
Yeah, like tearing the bag open is easy because it basically evaporates because of the amount of grease that's, so like, you just have to touch it and it just opens like the Red Sea, and you're like, okay, here's all of my French fries. It's perfect. Like, Five Guys is my burger spot. Raising Cane's chicken.
Everyone says that, man. You know who
good. It's good, man.
So who have you ever heard of the band The Acacia Strain?
Yeah.
So Vincent Bennett actually streams on Twitch, and he was actually talking about how much he likes Raising. I think it was him. I'm almost positive it was him. But Raising Cane's has been brought up so many times recently.
It's good.
And then, like, chicken sandwiches in general, it's like a fucking war on chicken sandwiches. You know what I mean? Like, over here, it's Popeyes and Chick-fil-A. So, like, those are the two over here.
Chick-fil-A is in Vegas now.
Is it really?
It is. And for the longest time, this godless city was never going to get it, right? Like, it was basically the narrative that existed. Whether it's true or not, I have no idea, right? But this godless city, because Chick-fil-A, being as good and Catholic as they are, didn't want to be a part. Like, I think this was as far west as they were prepared to kind of venture at the time. But like, Chick-fil-A opened a couple of years ago. It was lines for months long. Like, they would just, you could get in there, you'd be like, I'm going to be here for 3.5 years. Like, this is where we live now.
God, it happens over here too, man. As soon as something new that's never been over here, like Sonic.
Right, yeah, it's the same.
Sonic
it's the same anyway. Really?
What the fuck? Why? And you know what's the worst part, Gareth? My wife, love her to death, she makes me go to Sonic anytime we're near one because she just likes them so much.
I'm gonna need you to define makes you.
Makes me, literally, I'll be like, we're here, you can get anything you want. And she's like,
whatever you need.
Didn't we just pass a Sonic? And I'm like you get that fucking eye twitch where you're like, of all things, Sonic.
Like, wait, what? Like,
we can get you like a drink if you want. Yeah, do you want a drink? Like,
yeah. How much sugar do you want in that drink?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
It's all basically like, that's a lot.
Exactly.
Not that any other place is any better when it comes to this soda machine, right?
Very true.
Listen, that's the other thing about Five Guys is you have the soda machine that just gives you the variety of flavors. You have your flavor variety soda machine.
Yes.
So I can get a raspberry Coke whenever I want, and nobody can judge me for it.
Very true. Very true. And you could get like 9 million different fucking like Coke Zero versions that you're like, mango. I guess I'll try it.
Yeah. Yeah, like, sure, I'll try anything twice.
Yeah, it sounds tropical.
Yeah, I'm going to do a Coke Zero, and I'm going to fill it with all of that syrup. Thank you very much. Like, I'll take it. Like, it's the most, that and spray butter that you can get in grocery stores are the two most American inventions I've ever seen.
I don't know. I'd have to say cheese that lasts longer than humans in fucking individually wrapped slices.
Yeah, there is that too. That's pretty great.
That's pretty terrifying.
It's terrifying, but we all know that we would reach for a slice of that and put it on a burger.
Yeah, big time. Because it sucks with real cheese. It's only good with rubber cheese. You know what I mean?
Yeah. If it's not sticking to the roof of my mouth, why are we even here?
So, Who are some local influences that you watched in your scene? Like, who are some people that you sort of like? Um, you said Earth Tone 9 was the band. Am I correct?
Earth Tone 9, yeah. So like I think it's important to identify that like the UK, as much as it's only the size of Florida, like was still very compartmentalized in terms of scenes and where they existed, right?
Really?
Like yeah, well, I
Okay.
mean, like the South Wales scene was brewing. Like it was just boiling with bands. Like there were so many different bands.
Okay.
Um, and you got to think that like for a while, and especially in the indie scene, right? You had Catatonia, the Stereophonics, Manic Street Preachers, all from South Wales,
Okay.
right? All from the valleys of Wales, which is not very big. I don't even think most people in America can understand how small the valleys of South Wales realistically is to have three bands on three major labels selling out arenas around the world is a real anomaly.
So, like, how small
And
are we talking here?
I mean, within a 65-mile radius of each other.
Get the fuck out of here.
Like with it, it's not very big, man. You can drive across Wales in an hour if you're
Oh,
gunning it.
okay.
If you're gunning it.
Okay.
If you got a heavy right foot and there's no traffic. But yes, like you can make it across the country fairly quick. It's not very big at all.
Okay.
So within a 65-mile radius of each other, you've got Catatonia, Stereophonics, Manic Street Preachers, and then the first kind of crossover band more than anything was the Lost Prophets. Lost Prophets were like I worked with a few of the guys over the years, and well, like when they signed their record, like before they had their record deal, and then the doors kind of blew off as of that point. Then for the scene itself, right? Like more and more people started to pay attention to what else was going on.
Okay.
Because you still had bands that were unsigned there. Hondo McLean was the band that was there. Hondo McLean was where Ryan, our drummer, we eventually took Ryan from Hondo McLean. When I left Funeral for a Friend, the guitar player for Hondo McLean joined Funeral for a Friend. And then when Darren, the guitar player, left Funeral for a Friend, the bass player for Hondo McLean took over the bass duties and the guitar player took over the guitar duties. And that was the final iteration of Funeral for a Friend.
Right. Burroughs replaced you, correct?
Burroughs replaced me. Yeah,
yes.
Gav replaced me. And you know, like we played shows with Hondo McLean. We played many shows with Hondo McLean. I'm trying to remember like more of the other bands now, but my memory is just gray hair here and he is all legit. Trying to think who else, but there was just Maida Suna was another band that we played with often. So there's this Bullet for My Valentine obviously came from South Wales as well. Like there's just a lot going on in a very short in what's felt like there's maybe 6 places that these bands can play in. Like it was a pretty incestuous scene. Like everybody knew everybody. And again, it was all new to me. I was looking at it with fresh eyes and a fresh perspective. So it was really exciting to be a part of because it was, like I said, it was just picking up really quickly. So to have all of that kind of brewing in one 65-mile radius of each other was pretty intense. Like there was a lot of bands playing, and it was a very tight-knit scene, like I said. And we all just had a lot of respect for each other because everybody knew what everybody else was doing. Everybody knew what effort they were putting in to try and catch the wave to a certain extent. And Lost Prophets really kicked the door open for the scene, I think, because they were the heaviest band that had come out of South Wales, and they had a big impact really quickly. So they kind of opened the door, and then it was fairly shortly after they released their first record that the first EP came out, if I remember correctly. If Between Order and Model came out. And Lost Prophets had already, I think they might have been on album number 2 by that point. I'm not sure the timeline, but I know that the world was paying pretty close attention to what was going on in the valleys of South Wales quickly, which was fascinating.
That's so crazy to me that in a 65-mile radius, it was just fucking talent galore. And like over here in a 65-mile radius, you couldn't find anyone to be in your fucking band. Like And 9 times out of 10, if you lucked out, it was because you got someone from another band that like it broke up
Right.
because they didn't get along anymore. And I always feel like that's the ultimate test of friendship is like if you're in a band with people and you actually end up touring or playing a lot of shows, if you can tolerate being together all the time,
Oh, for
then
sure.
more power to you. But if you start fighting,
For sure.
it goes off the fucking rails real quick. You know what I mean? Like, and
Like,
it's I don't want to say it's unfortunate, but at the same time, it is because then you're sort of looking at it like there's business and friendship, and you really want to just do the friendship portion. You know what I mean? But business
right.
pays the bills, so you're like, ah, son of a bitch. Like,
And like on paying the bills, you got to understand, like, you know, to start touring, you kind of just have to not work, which means you have to not make any money.
correct.
And you're earning $50 a show, and you've got to feed
That's a
you.
lot.
That's a lot. Listen. That was then, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's probably even less now. It's probably you'll get a case of beer and a sandwich if you're lucky. So like, that was 50. It was £50 probably to play. Like you get £50 per show, so like $65-70.
I'm so glad you just did the conversion because in my head I'm like, yeah, yeah.
Listen, but I did the conversion. I did the conversion from the numbers that I know from back when I was in the band, though. So that might be like that's not taking into account inflation or anything else that's occurred over the years, like a couple of recessions. Like no big deal. I forgot where I was again.
So you're talking like you made $50, you were on tour.
Yeah,
so
you make
like,
you're making £50 a show. You've got to feed you the guys, maybe a merch guy, and get gas to get to the next show. And gas in the UK is the most expensive thing in the world. Like Americans complain at $3.50 a gallon. That's cute. That's really cute when the UK is probably closer to $9 or $11 a gallon.
Whoa,
you're welcome.
What the fuck? Really?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, well, we can talk about this offline. We can talk about this another time. I'm not going to come on this stream and talk taxes.
No.
That's not what this is about. That's not what this is about. But like you got to understand like what it costs to tour. And
oh, it's so goddamn expensive. We lucked out because like it was one of those things where we would tell them what our advance was. Mm-hmm. So this is what we had locked in. But then it became to 14% milk in the chat said gas is gonna hit $9 in the USA. LOL.
Oh my god! Yeah, but if it does that in the US, it's not in taxes though. Like it's literally in the tax costs. It's outrageous. Like 27% tax, something ludicrous at this point. Like it's outrageous. But it costs like
no fun.
Yeah, that's why there's no big SUVs in UK because it costs about $300 to fill the tank.
Yeah, I never even thought about that. Like, why aren't there any crazy SUVs and things like that?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, anyway, we digress. But I
totally forgot we were talking. We went off on a fucking tangent. See, this is why it's so fun because it's just like
I do this. I do this a lot. I do this a lot though.
That's totally okay. So like, your local scene had all these people and your local influences, mm-hmm. right? But like, what really was what stuck with you for you guys to write what you wrote together? Like, what were was it originally you joined and then those guys were writing, or is it you joined and you started to take your indie influence and put it into what Funeral for a Friend was doing? Like, I'm not saying like interjecting and being like, I need my part in here. I mean,
like straight to the neck. No.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. It was still really organic in terms of the writing process, right? So
okay,
when Funeral for a Friend wrote a song, at that time it was generally Chris, the guitar player, would have a riff of some kind, and we would sit there and we would jam on that. Like he and Ryan would jam on that for a little bit as the guitar player and drummer, and just kind of get a little bit of a tempo and kind of give it a little bit of structure. I would come in, start like filling out where the gaps were for a bass perspective, and then Darren, like we would all like this is all happening at the same time, right? But like it would be okay, let's give them some space to kind of hammer through this part, and we would all have suggestions on how a song would be written through that process. But generally it would start with a riff or something that Chris would have on his fretboard. eventually that graduated to becoming Matt the singer having a little bit of a writing process, and then Ryan as a drummer having some like a bigger part in the writing process. It evolved over time. But at that time, it was very much like, okay, let's just sit in this church hall, which is super echoey and cavernous, and just play. And that's where most of Casually Dressed and Deep in Conversation was written. Well, we had to write 7 Ways to Scream Your Name first, which was between Order and Model. So the first 4 songs the band had ever written, and then the first 3 songs in the new iteration, which was This Year's Most Open Heartbreak, Kiss and Make Up, and Escape Artists Never Die, if I remember right. And then most of those songs went on to actually be on Casually Dressed and Deep in Conversation, because we'd only been a band for such a short period of time. Like most bands have, you got to remember, right, that most bands have their lifetime to write their first record. Like
yeah,
we did
exactly.
Like we did not. We had months, and it was like and we were still learning how to be a band together. Like we still hadn't written a ton of songs together. Literally the first 4 songs that were ever written was Between Order and Model. The next 3 or 4 was Kiss and Make Up was the other song. That's right, there were 4 tunes.
Okay.
The next 4 songs was literally that's what turned into 7 Ways to Scream Your Name for the most part.
Okay.
So it's then we had to start writing for an album, and we were like, okay, like how does this go? Like all of a sudden we're sitting in a room going, okay, how do we write songs? Like how do we do this? Because we hadn't been a band together long enough to be able to kind of feel that out. So that's where it all kind of got really focused. And you mentioned it earlier, right? But it quickly turned from, this is some fun that I can have with my buddies on the weekend, to, oh shit, this is going to be my job now. Like this is going to be what pays my bills now. Like, okay, like there's and looking back at it with fresh eyes, like I probably didn't pay as close attention to that as I should have.
And what do you mean by that?
Like, from a
like
business
realizing this is your job now, like I need to start...
oh yeah, I need to take this a little bit more fucking seriously. Like yeah, like there's more people depending on this now than just 5 boys from the valleys of South Wales that are just prepared to fuck off and have a good time. Right? Like it gets very serious very, very quickly, and it's fun still. Don't get me wrong. Like it's not that it's not fun. Mm-hmm. Like it's a shit ton of fun. Are you kidding me? It's the most fun you can have.
I would
like,
imagine.
Goofing off with your friends like 300 days a year. It's the best. But it gets to a point where you've got magazines calling you the hottest band on the planet before your first record's been released. Like the pressure that subconsciously mounts in that time is astronomical. Like you don't think like it's all, from the outside looking in, it's all fun and games, and from the inside looking out, it's mostly fun and games. But you'll get to the point where you'll go, oh shit, like we have a job to do eventually. Like this has to happen now.
So what was the freak out point? The 2003 Kerrang? Was that the what the fuck? Like
we knew we were going to be on the cover. We didn't know what the headline was going to be. So
really,
I walk into the store.
Okay.
Like I'm walking into a store the morning of to go pick up a copy, and it says that, and I'm like, fuck. Like, oh shit.
Was it weird to look at yourself and be like, I
wasn't on the cover. Like if you go and you Google like Funeral for a Friend's first album cover, it's Matt's head from top to bottom, and then it's torn through right here. So you just see him screaming, and it says, and it's Krang across the middle, and so his eyes are basically blacked out.
Okay.
And it says Krang magazine, and it says, we found the hottest band on the planet, or words to that effect.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Jesus Christ. And like there was I remember there being a conversation with management about like that's a lot. And he's like, it's amazing. It's the best, like it's the best headline ever. And we're like, that's a lot. Like that's a lot to deal. Like in retrospect, looking back at it as an almost 40-year-old, looking back at it now, when I was 24, I was a child when all of this was going down. I was like, what is happening here? Like I'm still parking my car at other people's houses to stop the repo man from coming to get it, because we haven't made a payment on that car in a year. because we haven't made any money. We've just been sitting in the back of this like clunker ass van, getting paid £50 a show, trying to survive. Like we're not paying bills. You're out of your goddamn mind. Paying rent. That's cute. Like I didn't know if I was coming home and like my stuff was going to be just sitting out somewhere. Like it was different. Like it was very, because amongst all of that anxiety of like I have to try and survive, is like it's all going, like I swear to God, I'm standing in a bank at one point with a magazine with a review of the band, and I'm going, I need a loan, and I promise you I'm going to be able to pay you back. Like this is me. Like I'm
fucking magazine.
happened because I'm like I haven't paid a bill in a year and a half. It's been a year and a half easily before I paid a bill. So like I've got debt collectors like pounding my doorstep, because that's what the pursuit of it took. Like,
yep.
And to be honest, like that was the momentum, like like it was get on the wave or eat it. And we were like, okay, well, like we're on it. Like we're just like, this is just what we're doing. And it wasn't even a conscious effort. It was just like, okay, here we are. Like this is what's happening next. And before we know it, we're in a studio recording our debut album. And we're like, we've been a band for 18 months.
And you put out that studio album in less than a year, didn't you? Well, within a year, like pretty much 11 to 12 months. Like not.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was like 8 to 9 months between 7 Ways to Scream Your Name, or 4 Ways to Scream Your Name as it was in the UK. It was 7 Ways to Scream Your Name in the US.
Yep.
Because we did both EPs at the same time for the Ferret. But in the UK, I think it was only like 8 months in between. Like it was almost no time at all.
Jesus Christ! Talk about fucking like. All right.
It was a whirlwind.
We gotta move.
Yeah, and I listen. If you know, again, bands have their entire lives to write their first album, which is why the second album often sounds so different, because they have a much shorter timeline. So if you want to talk about the evolution between the 2 EPs to the full length, like, yeah, like part of the reason I think there's so many songs on Casually Dressed that were on that EP is because we had to find a way to be able to tie the sounds together somehow. And a subconscious effort, not a conscious effort, but subconsciously, I'm sure it was just like, this record would sound so incredibly different if we wrote 6 more tunes versus taking the ones off that album that we know we wanted to be, or taking the ones off the EPs we know we wanted to be on the album. That album would have sounded so much different if we had time to sit and write more songs.
Okay.
And I had more time to develop the sound of, like, I think Casually Dressed would have been a very, very different record. And maybe not in a good way. I think that's part of the beauty in it, is you get to look at it and be like, it could have been even better, but it could have been much worse. And I like to look at it now and think that everything happened for a reason on that timeline.
I like that. So you're one of those people that's like, I wouldn't change anything. No.
Like if I go back and look at it, I would have taken a closer look at the business side of things, probably. I think I was probably a little late in the game identifying what that could mean, right? And how frivolously we were spending money because it was just available to us. It was just like, not on a personal level, but as a band, like,
right.
It didn't, like, touring the US, our first US tour, for argument's sake, like, we had a tour bus on our first ever US tour. We're playing,
holy shit,
we're playing clubs, but because we've got record label backing in the UK, it enabled us to be able to do that. Like, looking back on it now, like, put us in a van and let's save the money, because it costs so much to tour. It costs, especially America. By the time you're done touring one coast in America and get to the other, it's time to go back and start the process again.
Yes.
Like, you could spend a lifetime touring in just America solo. So, like, we were grateful that we'd had some success fairly quickly in the UK, which kind of helped balance the books, I guess, in retrospect, to help us get over here and kind of be a little bit more comfortable, which is good.
So was the response to you all the same as it was over here in America? Because, like, watching you guys here in America was a fucking treat. You know what I mean? Like, because it's
that's funny.
Across.
That's funny, because we were playing at that point. We were playing 2,000 capacity clubs in the UK that were sold out multiple nights, and we'd come over here and play to a 200 capacity club with maybe 10 people in it.
Really?
Yeah, we were
So
playing
fucking
small sport.
weird.
Like we were like our first US tour. Like we just finished our first British headline run, if I remember right. Or we were like right after our US tour, we were headlining in the UK. I don't remember which order it was, but we had a sold out UK tour, and then we were coming over here to open for like our first US tour was From Home to Ashes as the headliner.
Oh my
Cave
god.
In every From Home to Ashes, Cave In, Every Time I Die, and Us was our first US run.
Oh my god. Talk about a fucking. Oh.
It's fucking great. Like
Oh.
such a great tour. Like we were so privileged to be on that tour
Mm-hmm.
and tour with those bands in that moment. And listen, like I still listen to Every Time I Die today. I still listen to Cave In today.
You and
Like
me both.
the news of Caleb last year was like a few years ago now was fucking super upsetting to me.
Yeah.
Because the those bands hold such special places in my heart because that was the first ever US tour that I was ever a part of. Like those were the bands that I got to kind of be around for my first American tour. And you got to understand what that means for a band from the UK. To tour America is the fucking dream, man. Like that's the be all end all. As much as like American bands just be like, I want to tour overseas, like it's the same for every other British band trying to get to the UK, trying to get to the US. So it was a big deal to me. And to yeah, you get to live your dream out. Like that is bananas. Like it's just absolute crazy town.
What was that first American tour like? Was it just I understand you got along with the bands, you had a great time with them, but what were those shows like being here? Were you just like
It
this is
was an
so much
education.
different?
Yeah, it
Okay,
was an
in what
education.
sense? In what sense?
Um, in the sense that like we grew up, we were like you referenced earlier, and it's hard to say because it sounds super arrogant, and I don't want it to sound that way. Like, but the
No,
way
no,
that
no,
you
I'm
put
not
it
gonna say
earlier,
that. Yeah.
in a sense that we were part of the birth of the scene in the UK,
Mm-hmm.
whereas the scene in the US, we were not like we were not. I appreciate you said like you were part of the lexicon, like we were part of the lexicon, but there wasn't an abundance of people that gave a shit, right? So like this is my first time actually. Oh, like we're opening for fucking hardcore bands, like genuine hardcore. Like we played for hardcore bands, like we played with Boy Sets Fire from a hardcore band
Mm-hmm.
perspective in the UK a bunch of times, and then we done shows and tours with like the Juliana Theory and Phony was a UK British band that we toured with that were
Okay.
pretty heavy at the time. Get them, Coco, get them. If you could see my dog, she's about this big and she just thinks she's a savage. Hey, come here, come here. It's okay. So like touring the US for the first time was our first taste of playing hardcore shows in the US.
Okay.
And we were the lightest band on that bill. Like you got to remember, Cave In were playing Juggernaut.
Yeah.
Like they were playing Juggernaut as a record at the time, and they were opening with Dazed and Confused in its entirety. The entire like Dazed. Oh, dude, it's so great. Like
It's like all
the
just
the
face
high,
punching. Just all face punching.
all punching in the faces, like all of the face punching. But like they opened, they opened with the Led Zeppelin cover of Dazed and Confused, and they played the song in its entirety. They played all 8 minutes, like and then some, and then like
Awesome.
would jump in and then jumped into Juggernaut right afterwards. And you're like, oh my god, like this bill is heavy as shit. So we were the pop punk act for most of it, like for most of that. So like we were the pop act, so and we were the opener. So we definitely got the distinct vibe that this is vastly different than the UK, right? Because the UK felt like it was almost spoon fed to us to an extent because
Okay.
the scene grew around us, whereas when we came over here, the scene was something else, and we were just trying to piece it together. Like we were just trying to be a part of it in America. So it's interesting to have that take on it, which is like you view us as being a part of that, and for us looking like we were like, oh, we're very much outside this here. Like we're not a part of the clique necessarily.
So the band that I was in was a metalcore band when I first got into playing music.
Right.
And our guitarist, so it was me, my friend Lance, my friend Joe, and this kid Dan, and this kid Mark.
Mm-hmm.
So we
Right.
were a 5-piece. And what happened is that Mark started to write more things that were more emo pop punky, and we were like, all right, we don't want to go in that direction. Dan kept
Okay.
writing stuff that was more along the lines of like Alexis on Fire, mixed with some Funeral for a Friend references. but more
Okay.
so along the lines of like just sort of figuring out what he wanted to write. And then we brought in our friend Mike, who we called Ross because of his last name. And Ross had this obsession. And when I say obsession, I mean like casually dressed in hours. If that fucking kid heard a gallop in any song, right? Or yeah, or even like a really
Streetcar.
cool octave section or like a harmony that he really liked, he'd be like, I think we can take influence from this. And we're like, you mean fucking rip it off. Don't rip it off.
Yeah.
Just go ahead and be like, come on, come up with some. You know what I mean?
Let's be honest. Like the if I remember correctly, the line goes like, great artists, good artists borrow, great artists steal. Like,
yeah.
like it's all about there's definitely a difference between a humble head nod, like a tip of the cap, and just like oh, these 5 chords sound great together. I'm gonna change the 5th chord.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I'm just gonna change the 5th one and make it like suit me a little bit differently. Yeah, listen, that's the thing. That's fine. But no, that's really sweet of you to say, because like it was I think I don't know if the other guys felt that way. Like I don't know if the other boys in Funeral for a Friend felt that way or not, right? But there were definitely moments it was just like, oh, like we're kind of the outsiders here. Like, because I think the reputation of, well, this band has kind of done well in the UK, let's see what you've got kind of thing. There was almost like okay, we kind of need you to kind of come out here and prove yourselves a little bit. And it's just so costly to be able to do that. Like, again, these bands have had 7 years of being a band together before they released their first record, of just like pounding pavement in the US and getting this organic ground, like, and like grassroots base brewing. Like we didn't have that opportunity. Like we were joining these bands at the point that they were already very much on the upswing. And we were still trying to build that grassroots element to it. Because you got to, like, we were originally signed to Atlantic in the US,
right?
But we were releasing through Ferret though. We were putting music out with Ferret.
How the hell does something like that work?
It's licensing. Like and again, going back to, I wish I'd paid closer attention to the business aspect of things. Like, tell me why. But I can only imagine. But from a credibility perspective, like looking back at it in retrospect, it wasn't our intention. It wasn't the goal. But I think releasing on Ferret instead of Atlantic as your debut record in the US, as part of a scene, gives you a little bit of credibility inside of that space to be able to release through Ferret versus Atlantic, would be my guess, is what the marketing team was thinking.
Yeah, I think you're right on that end, because like if you think about it too, I think during that time on Ferret, you had fucking Killswitch Engage, I think, was on Ferret at the same time you guys were.
I know Every Time I Die definitely was.
Yeah, they definitely were, but I'm almost positive that when I could be wrong, but I think when Jesse David Leach, the original singer,
yeah, when the original singer left.
Yeah, I think like right at that end is when they were there, and then they morphed into something else. But
it could have been.
What are some famous influences that really got you? Like, you had local influences, yeah, but what were some famous ones? Like, there was a band over here that was really popular called Transit, and they got extremely popular. They were sort of like a Taking Back Sunday meets Fall Out Boy meets American football, like all these different things mixed together. And they disbanded, and now he has a new band, Joey Boynton and Matt Morin. They have a new band called Narrowcast. And it's one of those things where you really like listening to these bands evolve and things like that, but they always have that sound that you know that's them. You get what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
So, like, what are some famous influences for you? Because for, like, Matt, when I interviewed him, he was like, Phil Collins. And I'm like, I don't fucking get that at all in your music. So I'm like, where did that come from?
Wait, which Matt? Like, my Matt?
No. Matt Morin from Narrowcast.
Matt Morin. Yeah,
so, like, when he said that, I was just like, wait a minute. You play, like, music that's not even close to being Phil Collins. You know what I mean? So, like,
no,
what,
for sure.
For you, what were some things that, like, really got you to want to play music? Like, who are some famous people that really struck a chord with you? Not to make a fucking lame pun.
Like at the beginning of my, like when I was learning to play music, or at this point in Funeral for a Friend?
Both.
Okay. Yeah, I was listening to a metric fuck ton of Radiohead the point of joining Fuel for a Friend. Like I was the guy that bought OK Computer like 6 times and returned it to the store 6 times because I was like, this record sucks. I don't understand it. And then eventually, like on the 7th or 8th listen, I was like, okay, like I'm just gonna sit down this weekend and just hammer this, and I would just listen to that. And then as like Radiohead was like my bread and butter at the time. Sigur Rós was another band that I would listen to a lot, which is a vastly like down tempo, obviously vastly different. A lot of acoustic artists. Like I like my music very, I don't want to say soft. I like songs. Like I was just a really big fan of songs and listening to like people that could just write really, really great tunes. And for me, a lot of that just revolved around like what my parents would listen to a lot of the time. So like I stole my parents' vinyl collection. It's sitting right over there. So it's like Led Zeppelin 4, Black Sabbath. And then my dad was very much like a Duran Duran, NXS.
Okay.
That was what I grew up listening to in my household, right? It was Dire Straits. My dad would listen to Dire Straits a lot. Yeah, I think that's it for the most part. As I think about the records that sit over there, I'm like, I can put those on right now and be kind of thrown back in time. And then as I'm like getting older, yeah, like I said, the indie scene was big. It was always Oasis, The Verve. Trying to think who else. Badly Drawn Boy was another artist I listened to. I Am Clute, which is like, oh, these are all bands that like for the most part didn't even make a splash over here, which is fascinating.
Really?
Yeah. And listen, there are still bands that we toured with way back when that I'm like, man, they should have had the opportunity. Like somebody should have seized something. There's a band called This Girl that were always at the forefront of the scene, but never tipped this. Like they could never quite tip the scale. Like no record label would give them a big enough of a chance and a big enough of a push, and they could have been fucking great.
Was it one of those things where they were on the tip of the tongue, but like no one wanted to?
100%. 100%.
That's fucking rough, man.
It's hard. And have you heard of a band 100 Reasons?
I've heard of the name. I've never listened to the music, but I've heard of the name.
Yeah, so 100 Reasons. Hell is for Heroes was another band at the time. They were part of the local scene that was just like starting to really break. Like they had music videos on Fuse, and we were like, oh shit, like this is getting serious now. They're like, oh, I love these bands, and it's great. And I still listen to those songs today. Like I can go back to both of those bands' debut records and put them on and just be like, oh, like this is just so good. But that kind of something like that, I think for the most part, my taste in music was pretty eclectic, like early on.
You lucked out with you lucked out with what you grew up with your parents. I got screwed. I had fucking Michael Bolton and shit.
Oh no, don't get me wrong. I had that too. I just have selective hearing. Like I choose what I do.
Yeah, so like
I had a choice early on.
My uncles and my brother who got me into like music that wasn't like, I remember my brother playing like Sublime when I was like really young, and then my uncle.
No from me, Doug.
Yeah. So like I really like, so like that's the thing. I really liked like the ska reggae start out for like me getting into pop punk because it was super easy. I know it's super funny, right? But like
no, and I'll explain why. So it's only funny to me because to this day, I have the belief that you can put ska and reggae in a rocket and blow it to the moon, and the world will be a better place without it.
Are you shitting me?
Yeah, because you've got to understand the context of where we grew up and how different those places are, right? Like I grew up in a place where the idea of reggae music and like tin drums, like come on, man, that's on TV. Like that's not music. I'm not gonna I got nowhere. There's no bar in the UK playing that anywhere, like fucking anywhere. Like that's not being played because the weather's just not good enough for it to ever be.
I was just gonna say that. I was just gonna say you have no fucking palm trees. You have none. Sun often. You know what I mean? So it's sort of like a kick in the balls. Like
Right. It's like it's just a slap in the face every time Bob Marley opens his mouth. But like, yeah, I get it. It's fucking great where you are. Like, it sucks here. But I maintain that to this day. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but please continue. I'm gonna go grab another beer while you continue to tell me the story. But I can hear you.
No worries, but it's one of those things where like my uncles introduced me to heavier music, and one of the first heavier bands that I had listened to is actually Tool. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So like that was one of the first, I guess, heavy bands that had more eclectic bass lines than what I was used to. So like
that's cool.
Another reason why I liked Sublime was for that reason, because hearing like the walking bass line in a song that really, you know what I mean? Like hearing a bassist stand out in a song instead of playing root notes or something like that is always really nice. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Where the bass can kind of take the bit of a foreground, which is definitely does not almost anywhere ever. So yeah.
So for you,
like,
go
ahead.
What was like? Were you happy playing bass? Like, because you said you started out on guitar. Like, I felt like I was
originally
like,
absolutely not.
Yeah, see?
Originally, absolutely not. Yeah. I was like, oh, really? Me? Okay. Because I was the worst guitar player. So it made total sense, right? Like it was a logical, it was like, okay, those who can't play guitar, play bass. Is the bad rumor, right? So
it's like gym teachers in the US. That's what they say.
Gym theater teachers, same thing.
Yeah.
Music. Listen, in most circumstances, music teachers. I remember my music teacher in school looking me dead in the eye and was going, "You should probably think of doing something else.
Get the fuck out of here."
Yeah, quite literally. Listen. I wasn't a great musician then, and I'm an even worse one now. Because
we're in the same boat, Gareth. Anymore. We're in the same boat. I haven't played in like 7 or 8 years.
I have one bass left that I kept, and it was a custom made bass by Sandberg, and it's sitting in my closet. That's the only instrument. I have that and an acoustic guitar that my fiance bought me for Christmas a couple of years ago. Like those are the only instruments in my household, and my 11-year-old has a ukulele.
Oh, that's awesome! That's awesome.
Which is awesome. Like it's something for him to tinker on. He got it for Christmas, so yeah, Santa brought it for him. If he's watching,
so
he's not watching.
Like for us over here, one of the biggest accomplishments, Jesus Christ, accomplishments was playing a place called the Alston ICC, which is a church that had a rec hall that was supposed to hold, and get this, it was supposed to hold 200 people. But if anyone from the bands in Spirit or Lost for Words are watching in the future on YouTube, they will even tell you that we fit like fucking 700 people in a 200 capacity room, and the fire chief.
The fire code?
Yeah, the fire chief would look the other way. He'd be like, "You guys are fine. You're not causing problems." Like,
it's because there was cash hanging over here. He goes, "Excuse me."
Fucking, you'd see him come in with that handlebar mustache, and then be like, "Nothing to see here," and like fucking leave. Yeah. The walls would sweat. Oh, it was fucking awful. But what was the local thing for you guys? What was the big local venue that wasn't like we've made it big time? Really?
TJ's. Okay. And you can Google it. It's the world famous TJ's in Newport, which is in South Wales.
Okay.
It's where Kurt Cobain proposed to Courtney Love.
Oh shit!
Playing that show.
Okay.
Yeah, like TJ's. Any band that was anybody ever played through that fucking venue. Like, and it became this Johnny, who was our original drummer that eventually became our promoter.
Okay.
With SJM, was putting every fucking hardcore band on was playing there. Like I watched Thursday, the movie Life, and 100 Reasons play a show in TJ's that fucking blew me away. Like I'll never forget it. I watched Snapcase play in TJ's, which is still hands down the one of the best shows I've ever seen. Was watching Snapcase play in TJ's. Like they broke into Bleeding Orange, and I've never seen a room move like it. Like it was just people were bouncing off the walls. Like it was still like I get a feeling in the pit of, when you're a band, right, and you watch other bands play, you get this feeling in the pit of your stomach where you're like, I want to play, like I want to pick up an instrument and I want to fucking go right now, right? Like I still get that feeling thinking about that show, and I don't get that feeling anywhere else anymore.
That's
like,
so fucking.
But I think about that Snapcase show, and every single time I just go, oh, like I'll never forget the way that the floor was just fucking moving, because I was standing at the back of the room watching the show, and I would basically see this of the band as people were jumping up and down. Like I would see like snippets of them as like people were bouncing up and down. It was bananas. Still one of my favorite shows of all time, watching that show go down. But anyway, Johnny was putting on a ton of shows at TJ's, and we were fortunate to be able to play it a bunch of times. But like, even when things got much bigger for us in the UK, and we were playing bigger rooms, and we were playing like larger clubs, we'd still go back and play TJ's if we were going to do a hometown show. Like we'd do something big, and then we would always try and do something a little bit smaller for like some of the smaller shows. But TJ's was one. Club Eva Bach was another. TJ's held about 400 people, I think, pre-fire marshal, but before the fire marshal could see anything. But Club Eva Bach was upstairs. I just remember the load-in at Club Eva Bach being shitty because you had to take it up 3 flights of stairs to get to the damn venue.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, but I watched, like, I've seen some amazing shows there too. Trying to think. Oh yeah, I've seen some outrageous shows in that venue as well. Just like Enter Shikari. I watched Enter Shikari play there.
Oh, such an underrated band.
That was years after. That was years after we'd released Casually Dressed. The Enter Shikari. I watched Enter Shikari play in that room, and that's another one of those shows that I'll just never forget. I was just like, oh my god, like this is something special happening tonight. It's crazy. Yeah, wild.
That's so cool.
Those are the two like standout venues. And then the next level up into like 2,000 capacity rooms was the Astoria in London.
Okay.
Again, anybody played the Astoria, they flattened it a few years back, if I remember right. They finally imploded it, but they were fighting to keep that building like protected and historic for a really long time. At least they were when I was back in the UK, and like I said, I left in 2007. So they were fighting really hard to keep that place open. But yeah, these were the venues. Like that was it. But those were like the standouts that I can remember. And then one more, I guess, would be Barrowlands in Scotland. It's a 2,000 capacity room, and if you're gonna play in Scotland, you play the Barras, like the Barrowlands.
Okay. So like, now for big shows in the US, what were some places you played that you were like, I can't believe I'm playing here right now? Because you said when you're from the UK, you want to come over here, and then when you're here, you want to go over there. So it's like it's the same thing over and over again. I mean, even when time prevails and me and you are long gone, that's going to be the same fucking thing. Is always going to be, I want to play in the UK, and then the people in the UK are going to be like, I want to play in fucking the US. It's way, you know what I mean? Like,
Right. I think what's different is that we just don't have any idea what clubs are considered historic inside of that space, right? Like it's inside the US at least. I mean, I can tell you my favorite venues to this day will be Irving Plaza in New York City. I love Irving Plaza. It's one of my favorite shows. I love the Nova in Norfolk, Virginia.
Yep.
And just because of what goes on, like just because of the backstage area is just so freaking comfortable. Like these, like the venues I'm talking about, are designed for bands to be able to be comfortable in. Versus, you know, like because you come in, like a lot of these bands are coming out of vans, or like I've been on a tour bus for like 90 days with 15 sweaty, stinky ass dudes. Like for venues to take into consideration, like for them to just take into consideration, here's a clean shower for you to. Here, you don't have to wear flip-flops in this shower. Like, great, yeah, thanks, I'll take it.
That's fucking awesome.
Like, it's hysterical, right? And then you've got House of Blues, and then it just kind of escalates from there. but like we were always a club band for the most part, so I never really got to. We never really played like sheds or outdoor venues necessarily. We did Warped Tour, obviously, which is not a country club by any means. It's a ton of fun, and I recommend any band that could have experienced it. I'm glad that you did, right? And I hope something comes along in that similar kind of vein to kind of take the wheel one day. But Warped Tour is obviously a gruel. Taste of Chaos, we played some crazy venue. Like we played some arenas in the US on Taste of Chaos that was just bananas.
That's how I got to see you live, was Taste of Chaos.
Oh, really?
I only ever got to see you live once, and that was Taste of Chaos.
Once was enough.
Yep, but you know what? But not to blow smoke up your ass. When you really like a band and you only get to see them once, it means a lot to you. You know what I mean? So and you said over here you weren't very well recepted, whereas over in the UK you were like, we were spoon fed. But over here, when we finally got to see you at Taste of Chaos, it was a huge fucking deal, because we were like, we want to see if they sound like they do on the album live, and guess what? You sounded like you did on the album live. Whereas like over here, we were spoiled with the amount of fucking talent we had. So when we would listen to a band and then go to a show and hear that they were fucking hot garbage, I'd be like, okay, well, they were moved out of my MP3 player. There were no iPods at the time. There were no iPods.
No, there wasn't. There was no iPod.
When I got my first
Zunes,
iPod,
baby. Everybody was using the brown Zune.
Yep, exactly. And then when I finally
fucking brown.
Yeah, it was yeah, whose fucking brilliant idea was like, hey, let's make it brown. Everyone likes that color. No one likes that fucking color for a device. Like, it's not appealing. No. Like, Apple's like, oh, we'll do rose gold. People are like, that's baller as shit. Zune's like, brown. Let's do brown.
Apple didn't even need to go that crazy as to go rose gold. Then they just said, we'll just do white.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, it looks super
the
clean,
iPod was white. It was white and silver. There you go. Have a good time. Anyway, we spiral. So, like Taste of Chaos, and those kinds of tours gave us like the look at arenas. We did. Project Revolution was kind of our first major like summer US tour.
Talk more about that, because that was different for the time. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like
vastly different. Like so that was, so we were playing the second stage, and we had like on the second stage, I can only remember two other artists that played. So I apologize to every other artist that I don't remember. But No Warning was one. Okay. So the Canadian band No Warning. Yep. And Ghostface Killer was the other.
Get the fuck out of here! Really?
Yeah. And then on the main stage was the Used, Less Than Jake, Snoop Dogg, Korn, and Linkin Park. And that was our first ever like summer US tour. And we played every show of the whole thing. I think we left like a week and a half before the end of the tour. So it was like 6 to 7 weeks long. It was so much freaking fun though. Watching Snoop Dogg get chased off stage in Florida on a little scooter because he struck a blunt up on stage, and just watching him take off because literally police just started swarming the sides of the stage waiting for him to come off. Like nobody was coming to get him, and then he just hopped on his scooter and just peeled out. Fucking like some of the craziest, like some of the just absolute craziest events and stories on that tour. Like we had such a good time. I was sloppy too, like super sloppy.
I can picture this in my head. I can picture him doing this in my head because he's like a fucking icon. You know what I mean?
Right, like it doesn't matter how much of a emo band or rock band or like post-hardcore band we were. We still fucking toured with Snoop Dogg for a summer, and I will always hang my hat on that. I will always hang my hat on that.
That's so fucking
like
cool.
I remember. So at the end of every tour, like it's customary for bands to be able to go to the merch booth and just take some merchandise from the other artists, right? Yep. I just remember Ghostface Killer giving us all 3XL t-shirts, like these fucking huge t-shirts, and we're just like, well, we can't wear these, but cool. Like we understand. Like we were like, do you have anything in a medium, or a schmedium at least? Yeah, and he's like, no, it's 3XL or bust, bro. Like 3XL it is. Okay, we're all in. So like it's just bunch of like really incredibly white boys from Britain walking around in Ghostface Killer t-shirts down to their shins. Just the funny shit.
That's
Coco,
fucking
come
amazing.
here. Come here. Okay.
So like playing with bands that are kind of monumental in music history, like who's someone that's from that area that's monumental that you played with that's very well known? I already know who it is, but I mean,
the biggest band that we played with,
yeah,
was Iron Maiden.
Exactly. So that's what I
right.
wanted you to say it, but like I already knew. So that
you wanted
was
me to name drop it. Thanks.
yeah, no. It's not even just that. It's the fact that was my graduation gift for high school. So my graduation gift for high school was to go see Iron Maiden with one of my best friends, Mike Simpson. He's like
that's awesome.
He's like my little brother. So,
awesome.
Me and my brother are 8 years apart. So my brother's 8 years older than me. So I didn't have that sibling thing where I could have like, I always was like super envious of it, but like my brother was older. So I'm thankful for the fact, even though you're 5'4", I'm thankful for the fact that I got to learn things 8 years ahead of my time. So it kind of sort of gave me an advantage for what I was in for. But
there's big gaps between my kids too. I have a 17-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 2-year-old. So there's big gaps between my kids too. So I get that.
But at the same time, I think your kids. This is just an assumption, but I always looked at it as a curse of having an 8-year older sibling. But now that I'm older, I'm like, dude, I had such a fucking advantage. I had an advantage. I could call him for everything and anything.
He went through 8 years of shit for you to be able to get it on your first ass. Do you understand that? Like as the older sibling of a younger brother and a younger sister, like as the guy standing there fucking begging his parents, hey, can I get my first tattoo? No, for years. And then once I eventually just defy them and go get one, my brother and sister had to ask once. I'm like, fuck you guys. Like, you don't know how good you had it. Like, fucking spoon fed to you. I sent them a post recently that I found on Instagram actually that said, like, all the siblings don't get enough credit for the amount of bullshit they had to break through for their younger ones. And I sent it to my brother and sister. I said, pay your fucking respects. Which is preposterous. It's ludicrous. Yeah, I'm gonna make the scenery a little bit better behind me.
Oh, look at that. That's fucking fancy.
Look at that. No, it's not. It's Costco as well.
It's funny. Me and my wife visit Vegas the most because her grandparents live outside of Vegas in like the Mojave Valley.
They went coming over.
Yeah, so like, dude, we love coming out there because we feel like the only time I don't like it is going on the strip and it's raining and all these pricks like in New York hit you with their fucking umbrella.
Oh, in New York. Okay. So no, because in Vegas, you must have caught it on one of the 4 times that it's rained in the last 55 fucking years, because it never rains.
I'm saying it's like comparable to when you go to New York and like there's all these assholes that hit you.
I see what you're
so
saying.
like when you're coming up the escalators and trying to go across those little bridges, you have people that fucking pretty much spit in your mouth because they're
just just there.
Yeah.
Well, it's been interesting to kind of see that all unfold through this time. Like, you know, like this whole.
What's it like out there? Like right now over there?
It's starting to normalize again.
Okay.
Like I think we're getting back to a groove. Like the streets are starting to feel busy. Traffic has picked up. Like that's how I can tell that it's kind of getting busy again. But
the one thing I miss from the pandemic is the traffic. I work
on Las Vegas Boulevard, so I'm there 5 days a week for the most part. But it's like we're pretty much back to regular occupancy once tourism picks up again internationally. Once the quarantine period dies down for people, I think the US doesn't have a mandated quarantine period for international people coming in. But I think once people start to get a little less nervous and they start to see it kind of come to fruition, and that's how it's picking up really quickly. Like the strip is busy. It's busy.
We're hoping
on the weekends.
I think we're gonna come out there.
The weekends are crazy.
I think we're gonna come out there in the fall because like I just enjoy it out there so much. Like, and it's like Disneyland for adults going to Vegas. You know what I mean? Like
that's exactly what it is, right?
You know what I mean? So that's one of the things I really like about there. But like, what are what was it like playing with, and not to like name drop Iron
With
Maiden, but
Maiden?
like, what the
With
fuck is
Maiden?
that like? Because like going to see Maiden as someone who graduated high school, and it was one of my favorite fucking, like, literally my
Right.
parents were surprised I liked Iron Maiden so much, because I'm not joking. Anytime my mom and dad, so like my parents were not huge on music. They, like I said, Michael
Okay.
Bolton, Celine
They
Dion, like,
liked they liked what they liked what they liked. Yeah, I
exactly.
get it.
So,
Yep.
for my parents to come see my first local show, it was a big deal. And then at the end of my first local show, because I only had my own bass, I was playing this local band Letter Days bass amp. And my parents
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the show actually said to me, "We're gonna bring you to Guitar Center tomorrow, and we're gonna get you an amp." So I was like,
That's sweet.
"Wait, this is the
I
first
I didn't
time."
I didn't have a bass amp until we signed our record deal and they
Get
bought
the
me
fuck
gear.
out of here! Get the
Like I
fuck
like
out of here!
I was bumming gear up here. Like I had an amp that I wiped out. Like I annihilated it. And I think it was an Ashdown amp. And I remember saving for it for a while, and I took it on like the first tour that we did, and it ate shit on like the first show. I couldn't afford to get it fixed. Like I said, we weren't paying bills. I didn't have a pot to piss in. So like that broke. And we were talking to a record label at the time that was able to loan me a bass amp, and they loaned me a Trace Elliott bass amp.
Okay.
And it belonged to Go West, like the bass player for Go West, which is you familiar with who Go West is?
Yes, I am familiar who Go West
Yeah,
is. Like,
exactly. Yeah,
fucking
exactly.
really?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I'm fucking rolling around on this tour with this amp that says fucking Go West on the top of it to all of these hardcore shows. I'm like, what the fuck is happening here? So, but I didn't have an amp of my own until we signed our record deal. Like I had one, destroyed it, couldn't afford to get it fixed, and that was the end of that. Like, game over. So then I was just bumming amps off people the whole time. But yeah, like I feel you.
It's
Real life.
just so crazy to be like, you know, I tried like 9 million. So my brother was an athlete. So he played like hockey and shit like that. And
5'4"? Oh,
yeah,
there you go.
yeah. So my brother's built like a fucking English bulldog. He's like wide and short, and you're like, oh yeah, you'd be good at getting hit by stuff. So like,
Yeah, yeah. I listen. Me now as 6 foot tall and 160 pounds, soaking wet in a denim suit, played hockey for a little bit when I was a kid too, and that was not a good time after a while. I was like,
six
this is
feet
not fun
tall,
anymore.
160. Holy shit!
Right now, right now, like, and I'm twice the size I was then. Like, it's
Jesus
ridiculous.
Christ!
Yeah, dude, like the pads were just like hanging off of me. I never forget it. Never forget like having my hockey pads and playing hockey, like getting murdered.
So here's something funny for you. Did the UK have the same
Mm-hmm.
problem as the US? Over here, this is going to sound like a
Mm-hmm.
weird fucking question.
Go
Over
ahead.
here, during the hardcore metalcore scene, people started to wear tighter
Mm-hmm.
clothes, right?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Did people in the UK have to buy female jeans to get skinny jeans, or did the UK already have skinny
I
jeans?
expect so. No, I expect so. I expect like I fully expect that to be the case. Um, like I don't think I discovered skinny jeans until like 3 years into being in Funeral for a Friend.
Really?
And this photo. Oh, if you go back and look at the photos, there's fucking proof. Like there's proof. I did not find like I found black hair dye before I found fucking skinny jeans.
Get the fuck out of here, really?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, 100%. Fucking Refused came out with a Shape of Punk to Come, and that was it. We all fucking dyed our hair black. We're like, screw it, let's go. Like it became a uniform for us. We were like, okay, screw it, and like that was done. That was done just out of like having just a good bit of fun with just like 5 guys on tour. We were like, fuck it, let's just all dye our hair black one day. So we dyed our hair black, and that was that. We were like, what's it called? Shit. I'm kicking myself now, but The Shape of Punk to Come. Can I Scream? I'm forgetting the name of the song now. Fuck.
Shit.
Oh, I got you as well.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look it up. I gotta look it up.
So like, what was?
Oh, I'm sorry, well, no, check chat. Chat's got to know what we're talking about right now. But the shape of punk to come. What's the single?
We're both.
My God, we're losing. We're fucking new noise. We're losing credibility by the second. New noise. The new noise video had just been released. There's a lot of just like this general look.
Oh my God.
So they were like, fuck it, like let's dye our hair black and have a good time with it. And yeah, like, but in terms of skinny jeans, no, like I didn't know what fucking. Again, weighing 160, putting skinny jeans on a man that weighs 160 pounds is not the move. Like, it's not a look.
No, because at that time, it was fucking leggings.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, Lululemon can thank the emo scene for fucking skin tight anything. Like, you're welcome.
Lululemon.
Thanks, Lululemon. No, Lululemon's thanking the scene. Like, Lululemon was just like, we can make these more comfortable.
Oh, yeah, and we'll charge them a shitload of money and tell them that they're really fancy.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But just tell them that they're super bougie. It's fine.
What'd you open for your second beer?
I opened War Helmet.
That is... So I started with that, and it was really fun. Really fun.
It's great. So I led with Clip Out, which was super fruity and very flavorful. I was a big fan of that. But the double IPA is more my jam. I like when it comes to beers, I'm a brown, like I'm darker, like I'm ale. I'm good with those things.
Typical British beers.
But typical British beer, yeah. Like I'm a SA Brains guy. If I go back to the UK, like I'm drinking, because that's from pretty much my hometown.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the US, Rogue's Hazelnut Brown is one of my favorite beers. I love that beer.
Super consistent.
Deschutes Black Butte Porter. Always a gem. Like, big fan of that. I like the Dogfish Head 90. I like the double as well. I'm not afraid of the double.
To me, is a staple in the brewing community. We talk about that all the time. So like,
for sure.
With a lot of these new ones that I've made and other breweries have made, it's a lot more about what the new product is that's coming out. So
right.
Long story short, just like marijuana, hops have this fucking, like, there's concentrate, there's like the dabs version of hops.
Right.
So it's getting to the point where it's more about flavor and aromatics than it is about like old school styles. If that makes sense. So what they're doing...
But I said that to you before the stream started. Like, I cracked open that can and I was like, holy shit, this smells so good. And I just opened the can. I was like, this smells really good.
So Sam, the head brewer at Kettlehead, is someone who is just like, you can sit there and talk to him and he comes up with these wild fucking ideas and time limits for certain things. And I'm like, whatever you want, I will come in and I'll make for you. But it's one of those things at the same time where you're like, how does your fucking brain work? Like, how does your brain work? Because right now you're being a mad... So that's the one thing I love about brewing. And in the future, I'm going to start doing home brewing sessions that I stream from my driveway just to show you how to make it at home. But one of the things that I've noticed is, like, he thinks of things so far outside of the goddamn box that with all these new hops that are coming out, so hops and marijuana are from the same family. You have lupulin glands that are on a hop plant, which give off oil that give off the aromatics that you're tasting.
We're getting into the science, folks.
Yeah, exactly.
So, here we go.
So I sucked horribly at science when I was in high school. I was fucking garbage at it. So we had this teacher at my high school who, if you were horrible, he let you know at science. So he would fucking pitch the chalk at the back of the room and be like, you're an idiot, or like throw the barrel. You know what I mean? Like, nowadays
I was smoking weed with my physics teacher. Sorry, Dad. Sorry, Mom and Dad. Sorry, guys. Last class on a Friday was physics. Like, I appreciate you.
Physics, and I'm getting high. Awesome.
Yeah, quite literally. We were talking about bongs on the frequently. Yeah, terrible. Anyway, I digress. Please.
But it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, you know how you hate a subject because it does, like, that's what I feel like in America right now is overrated, is like, going to college and not learning valuable skills, like being so like the person that's
Gotta
the
know
head
a
brewer.
trade.
Yeah. So the head brewer at
Gotta know your
Kettlehead
trades.
is actually a master electrician, but also the head brewer. So his brain is filled with, I can wire your house, but I can also make you a tasty beverage through fermentation and the object of science
It's a
in
good
both
thing.
senses.
It's
So
a
you get
good
what I
thing.
mean?
Yeah, 100%. Like, and right now it feels like if it's not about beer, it's about bread. like people. Yeah, see, I've hit a hot button there, haven't I?
You definitely did. So my wife streams and
Oh shit!
she's
Oh, I just broke a glass. Shit! Damn it!
everyone
just broke
okay?
a glass on stream. No, everyone's fine. I just want to show you my leaven that I'm making right now.
Okay, so my wife actually streams cooking for Twitch, and like she's got like the cooking community is super friendly on Twitch. I can't thank it enough for being like a really awesome community. But
Of course.
throughout the pandemic, I had no worries about being fed because my wife started doing sourdough and like all these different things. So like she feeds her starter and has it keep going, and like it's all these things that I'm like, wow, we take things for granted so bad when you don't know how to make something. So when my wife makes bread, it's almost like I've already watched her create something from fucking nothing. Yeah, it's super
an event,
huge.
right? And as somebody like, and this is I'm gonna be real. Like, this is my first dive into even doing it, right? So this is day 5 and 6 over here.
Mm-hmm.
But like, yeah, I could go to the store and buy bread for fucking 99 cents, and I get why this is such a process. Like it's an exact science, and I look at beer. Beer is the exact same process. It's the exact same thing.
For Kettlehead, I did most of the sours. So, like, I know you're not a sour fan. So, like, the way to make
not particularly, but still
a fun, like what everyone likes right now is like, does it have fruit chunks? Like that fucking stupid shit. Almost like the IPA drinkers that are like, is it dank? Does it taste like fruit? You're like, okay, you like beer because it's the common positive thing that everyone likes right now. So all you're doing is reiterating things you read off fucking Reddit to tell me how you feel. You're not a fucking sommelier. You're just some dude that went and stood in line.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So yeah, exactly.
So like, I never took offense on like an app like Untapped where they rate your beer and someone says something absolutely batshit crazy like, I don't really like coconut, so I gave it a 1 out of 5. And you're like, why the fuck did you buy it?
Then why the fuck would you buy a beer that you don't like, asshole? Yeah, I get it. You go to restaurants.
I'm a vegan. I don't do meat, but I'm gonna eat this fucking ribeye right in front of you. Like, what? Yeah. What the fuck are you doing?
And I'm gonna eat it well done.
Yeah.
Like, fuck you, get out of here. Like, you don't know what you're doing.
I'm
like,
all for healing my body, and then they go outside and rip a butt after they have the ribeye. That's well done.
Right, give me the keys. You know what the fuck you're doing. Yeah, give me the keys. You know what you're doing.
So
it's like, ridiculous.
I'm not a snob when it comes to beer brewing or trying other people's beer. But with sours, it was one of those fun things where I thought outside the box of being like, what's the weirdest shit I can make, but also not make it so that it's repulsive or even like, this isn't beer anymore. This is literally a fucking daiquiri in a can, so it's a malt beverage. You know what I mean?
Right. And that's what I kind of drilled. Like fruit floating in my beer, I'm good, thanks. Like,
yeah, so like I like it in certain beers, but in other, so like my favorite brewery of all time is in Brussels. It's called Cantillon. And if you try to buy a Cantillon bottle in America, you better sell your fucking kidney.
I only need one, right?
Yeah. So like bottles over here are like $1.40 from people, but if you go over there, they're like $10-$12. You know what I mean? Like American dollars. So over here right now, Berliner Weisses is like the popular thing in IPAs, but I feel like it's gonna go back the opposite way, where it's gonna go back to those beers that people are like, I really like lagers now. Well, you should respect Budweiser, because lagers are fucking really hard to make, and people don't understand that, because lagering is literally taking a beer, putting in a really cold environment and letting it sit for a really long fucking time to get what the
Basically,
flavor
right.
you want. You know what I mean?
Right.
And in my state, I don't care if this doxes me, New Hampshire, Schilling is the number one lager company in New Hampshire, and I'll say that proudly. They they went and learned overseas. They even bought equipment overseas and had it shipped here, so it's the same exact thing. So in New England, we're really spoiled, whereas in your area, you're also really spoiled. The West Coast and
Yeah.
East Coast is not just Biggie and fucking Tupac anymore. It's it's literally beer
Touche.
styles. Yeah, so it's literally
Well,
beer
and Vegas
styles.
specifically, like Bad Beat Brewing's doing some really great shit. Henderson as well has a couple of breweries, but Bad Beat Brewing, Tenaya Creek is another really great one here in Vegas. Tenaya Creek has a brown ale that I love. Like, it's excellent. Like, I can't recommend it enough. But like, both of those breweries are like 5 minutes from where I live. Like, I can be there in no time,
That's so fucking
which
awesome.
is great. And like the guys that work behind the counters, they know their shit. I've been there a couple of times with some work colleagues. But yeah, like, I'm by no means a beer connoisseur, like, at all. Like,
And
I know what I know what I like, kind of thing, and I know what I don't. So like, when I'm like, I'm not a big fan of sours. Yeah, like that. Like, can I drink one? Sure. Will I drink one? Yeah. Like, I don't know that I don't know that anyone's ever handed me a beer and be like, I can't drink that. Like I'll get to the bottom of the glass, to say the very least, before I cast a judgment or an opinion on it. But yeah, there's just so many breweries. And you don't know this, but my ex brother-in-law used to be a brewmaster.
really?
Yeah, he went to Belgium to train for 6 weeks, and then came back and went and then trained with Goose Island for a while, and then came back to Vegas and was making beer here for a bit, for a local place in town. So I'm familiar with the process. I don't even claim, like, I'm never going to claim to be anything other than an absolute novice when it comes to knowing what it takes to make any kind of fucking beer. Like, no idea whatsoever. But I know what I like. Like, I know what I enjoy, and I'm a big fan of browns. Like, I like dark ales, but everything I've drank so far has been delicious. So nice work.
That's definitely an English thing. So brown ale. So like my uncle Jim, he lives like right around the corner from us. His favorite beer is Fuller's English Porter. Okay.
Okay.
And
Okay.
you can only get that over here, like where we are in on the map in the US. You can only get it at British Beer Company. And it fucking irritates me. So like in Massachusetts, I can go to Ultimate Beer and Wine. I think that's the name of the place. It literally is the size of like a fucking Toys R Us filled with
enormous.
alcohol.
It's a Toys R Us with alcohol, right?
It's so crazy. But I can always find it
Going
there.
back to 2 hours. Going back 2 hours. Dude, let's just build the largest building we can buy with alcohol. Let's see what happens.
Exactly. So like up here in my state, liquor is separate from beer. So if you sell bread and food in your store, you can hold beer and wine in your store. Okay? Otherwise the state regulates the hard alcohol. So
okay.
I think it's horse shit. I don't care if I get in trouble.
You can move to Nevada. It doesn't do that here.
Yeah, no shit. You don't know
go
how
anyway, buy booze anytime.
So like literally my wife and I almost moved out there when we first met. So we almost moved out there because I was just
no state taxes.
We have no state taxes. We have no state taxes.
You have that as
well. So
yeah,
that's the only one thing we have in common for our states. Right. Your fucking state's way more fun though. Our state no. Our state motto is live free or die, and people in prison print those plates. Bingo. I win that round. Your state's way cooler.
Okay. Do you and your wife ever plan on having children? That's a very personal question, I thought.
No, it's not a personal question.
You go ahead and look at the ranking for anything in America when it comes to states. Pick anything. Let's go education. For argument's sake, when it comes to educating your children, dead last.
Really?
Dead last. Oh, dead last. Dead last. Like the bottom of the barrel. Like the very bottom of the barrel. Like so. Listen, Nevada has its advantages. I love living here. I wouldn't live here if I didn't enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like there's challenges as there is with any other state. You know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's definitely something to drive down Las Vegas Boulevard or to drive down the freeway to go to the mall and have to explain to your son what Crazy Horse 3 is. You know,
So wait. Is
why
it
are those ladies standing there in their underwear? Well, I'm trying to explain that to a 4-year-old has its challenges, to say the very least. You know,
so for a lot of people that make references, they're like, you guys have it easy because it's not countries, it's states. You know what I mean? Whereas like each state has a, but I kind of look at the U.S. the same way as them almost being countries because each state has some fucking outlandish rules or regulations or
yep.
whatever they allow. So when people are like, "Oh, they're states, you're all one country," I'm like, not really, because if you're in Massachusetts and you happen to be a local band and you go on tour down south, you're like, where the fuck am I? When is someone gonna come out of that cornfield and take one or all of my organs or fucking like where that was the weird part is going back in time, thinking you're in the current time period and then getting down to like.
Yeah.
No offense, Valdosta, Georgia, but like, or Montrose, Pennsylvania, and being like, why am I in fucking Pleasantville? Why is everything this? Am I in the Matrix?
What year is it here?
Exactly. I felt like Robin Williams in fucking Jumanji. Like, what year is it? Like looking around.
Yeah, I get that.
And then you go to certain restaurants and you're like, I'll get this, and then you get it and you're like, that's not an Italian sub. You put 30 pounds of fucking mayonnaise on it. That's not an Italian sub. What is that? And she's like, it's got Bologna, and I'm like, it's bologna.
I'll make it differently for you next time, but that's how I make those sandwiches.
Do you really? You put an Italian? No. Oh god.
No. Sacrilege. No. But listen, I think that's again, as the British guy coming over from a country that's remarkably small and coming to experience the US, right? I think that's why so many people don't leave the US in general, is that you've got so many different microcosms within a space that's so big.
Yes.
Why go anywhere else in a lot of circumstances, right? But and if you're watching this and you have the means, travel a lot and travel alone and travel often. Like, I can't recommend it enough, but it'll just give you a better perspective for the places you choose to call home. And I choose to call Las Vegas home. You know, sure, I will talk a lot of shit about Las Vegas. It's fine. Like as anybody does about the towns that they live in.
Of course.
But I'm not leaving any day soon. Like I'm here for it, and I enjoy living here, and I enjoy the people that live here, especially in this community that I'm in as well. Like I'm in a newer home. I've been here for since June of last year. My fiance and I have been here since June of last year.
That's why I fucked up the address thing. That's why I fucked up.
That's fine. We'll talk about that, and we'll explain that to other people another day. But yeah, it has nothing to do with the fact that I was standing in FedEx waiting to enjoy this.
Was it worth it though? At least
it was. It was so fucking worth it. I'd make that drive 3 more times tonight. I'm not scared. All right, what am I trying next? What should I drink next? I've got Citrus Days Soul Fight and the Agent left.
I was gonna open Citra Days.
All right, let's do it together. We'll talk about it together.
Sounds good to me, man. So considering it's a New England IPA with just citrus, sounds little fun.
P brakes allowed on this thing?
Yeah, of course. Go right ahead.
All right, cool. I'll be back.
Go ahead.
In a second. I'm gonna take my AirPods out of mute though.
Yeah, there you go. So as we wait for Gareth, if anybody in chat wants to ask any questions, you're more than welcome to. One of the things that we really like to point out here is how much the scene differs from the UK to the US. So it's really cool that Gareth gave us the time to talk about how different the UK, they were sort of spoon-fed. As he says, I don't believe it was spoon-fed. They were fucking talented, but they were having these venues that they were selling out that were 2,000 capacity and not having as much luck when they came over here, which is very funny because growing up in New England, they were sort of one of the staples for us to grow up with. And it was also one of those things to break us out of the comfort zone of playing heavier music that also had the pop punky feel or emo feel to it. So I really want to stress to everybody that it's very pertinent, I think, to most musicians. I'm not a good musician. I suck ass at being a musician. But one of the things that I think is pertinent, especially for like my music taste, this is just my personality or my input, is that I think you should listen to things that even you don't like. Chris Priest from In Spirit got me to listen to Rustin Colton, who's country, and I said I'd never fucking listen to country. So that was broken. And I listen to a lot of different things. So I kind of encourage everybody to sort of have the same open mind when it comes to music. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be that way. I was just while you were, having your break.
My little potty break.
Your little
Thanks,
potty
appreciate
break.
it.
I was just telling anybody that wanted to listen or even for review for the YouTube channel,
Sure.
that I think it's super important that as bands evolve or as bands change, that you kind of accept what they're changing into, or start listening to more music to broaden your horizon. Because I think that when people get genuinely mad at bands for their fucking music, I think it's absolutely ridiculous, because you can't expect them to play the same breakdowns and same runs that they've played for they're gonna get fucking
Yeah.
bored. They're gonna get bored, and
Yeah.
then that band's gone.
I kind of agree with you, right? And the reason is you already have that fucking record.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you've actually already paid that money once already for that album. Why do you want to listen to it again?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like,
So why would you want to invest in something you already know?
Right. Like albums, there's two ways to view music, right? There's the way that the artist views it, and there's the way that the fan views it. And the way that the fan views it is, this is capturing my time and space right now.
Yep.
But that artist, you have to remember, was writing those songs probably a year and a half, maybe 2 years prior. In some circumstances, it's even longer, right? So the timeline and the snapshot of where that band was then versus where you are now are two very different worlds. Like, I've already listened to that album that I've just released 3,000 times.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I'm already fucking sick of playing those songs before we hit tour, and that's an 18-month tour schedule, right? Like, so you've got to take those things into appreciation. But like when and it was never a conscious effort, right? It's not like bands sit there and they go, okay, we have to make this one sound different than the last one. Like, that's not what happens. It's way more organic than that. It's just a lot of just like, okay, this sounds good to us. Like, this is what we want to sound like right now. But that's how it's no different in sports, right? Like on any given year,
Okay.
you can have a really great football team or a really great baseball team. And I'm a baseball guy. I fucking love baseball. So like, I'm a San Diego Padres guy. It's been 15 years of misery for Padres fans for a really long time. Like, let them have, like, if you're a Dodgers fan right now, let them have their moment and just let us enjoy having a team that we can back and we can support, right? Like, but if you're not into that, cool. Like, there's 1,000 other things you can go out and listen to. Like, there's a bunch out there. Let the artist record the record that they want to make. It might not be what you like, but that's all right. Like, that's more than acceptable, and that's more than permissible. Don't persecute them for it, because bands will change as their experiences change. We write records based on what we've grown up around. So Casually Dressed was different. Casually Dressed and Deep in Conversation was built around all of the excitement and all of the anticipation of what was coming next. Ours was built on an 18-month touring schedule.
Really?
Does that make sense? Like, well, yeah, those tour experiences, those two experiences are vastly different, right? You have all of the ramp up towards,
I feel like they're two
getting
totally
signed
different fucking
and doing all
albums.
of those things. They're two very different records because they're two very different. Like, they're two very different times. Like, what Casually Dressed was written for the most part around all of this excitement and all of this new, whereas ours was written based on all of this excitement and it's new, but it's touring and it's traveling and it's like sitting on airplanes, and it's what does that look like, and what is being in different hotels, what does it look like to wake up in a city and genuinely stand on stage and go, where the fuck are we tonight? Like that's what it's actually built on. Like, and that's real life. Like that's how that occurs. So yeah, like albums are going to sound different in between, because experiences and expecting my belief was always expecting a band that's been a band for 5, like, were you the same at 25 as you are at 30?
Not even fucking close.
Like not even fucking close. So how do you expect the music to be the same? Because
right,
like is a different expectation to have, right? Like your experiences and your environment have changed fairly significantly. You might have the same job. Our job didn't change, but the delivery method of those of the work was vastly different. And that was probably the most challenging thing for me coming into the scene, since I wasn't a part of it in the first place, was that the scene was so judgmental about that, which I get, right? Because it's a very protective environment, and it's entitled to be that way because it's such a small group in the grand scheme of hip hop and rock music and pop music and all of those things. Like hardcore punk and post-hardcore live in a much smaller microcosm, so it's important to protect it. But if you want those bands to survive, it's got to be bigger than that. It has to evolve beyond bigger than that sometimes. And I think, again, as a guy that grew up as as not part of the scene and just kind of coming in from the outside, it was really interesting to me see the heat that Funeral for a Friend would take about, well, they've changed. Well, fucking duh. Like, I would expect anybody to be like I'm not going to be the same kid that I was when I was working part-time in a cell phone store,
eating fucking top ramen all the time.
Right. Like I'm not the same individual as I was eating top ramen in the back of a tour bus in fucking BFE nowhere.
Yep.
Like, you know, those experiences change you, and they should change you. And as those bands continue to write the records, like that record that they've just released is the most important thing in the world to them. Like, you have to remember that sometimes.
Yes.
Like, you might not be a fan of it. Fine. So you can go listen to something else. There are other things. You can be disappointed that you spent your $9 on that, or the $10, $13 on that record. I fully appreciate that. But give it a shot. Like, give it some time. And I think like Funeral for a Friend was fairly eclectic through its records. Like, when you think about
extremely.
Yeah, and we're focusing primarily on Casually Dressed and Hours from a big perspective, right? But I think our most diverse record was Tales Don't Tell Themselves, was the one that came next, where we spent a little bit more time getting a little bit more creative with our sound. I think that's fair to say. Like, we had the London Philharmonic Orchestra play on that record, for fuck's sake. Like, it was crazy for us. But that was where we needed to go to understand. And then if you go to Memory and Humanity, which was the last record I was on, like you can hear it kind of come back a little bit. Like, it's okay for bands to experiment, because if it gets boring to them, they're going to break up and you're going to get nothing after that.
Exactly.
So like there's bands have to keep it interesting, and I've never judged anybody for being a little bit different. And I think Thrice is one of those artists, right? Like, I was in a conversation with Dustin once in a club in London. I'll never forget it. And it was loud, and I don't remember where we were, but I just remember the music being crazy loud, and I leaned into him, and it was right after Artist in the Ambulance. And I was like, that record and that album for me was fucking, I was like, I play that album on loop all day, every day. I said, I think the sonics of that record, I think the song structures, I think the way that record has been delivered is flawless. And he looked at me and he went, I'm not a fan of that record. It's not the way that I wanted it to sound.
Get the fuck out of here, dude.
No, seriously, right? But
that fucking record is flawless.
Right, but listen, as much as you're entitled as a fan to say that it's flawless,
very true,
and for him to think that it's not is equally as acceptable as for him to release a record that he thinks is absolutely flawless, and for you to hate it. Like, he's entitled to that opinion in the exact same way, right? But there was a moment for me when he said that to me, and I was like, oh Jesus, like for me as a member of Funeral for a Friend, I was like, I would have been so fucking proud of that record.
Yeah.
And in that split moment, in that very, very split moment, he was comfortable enough to tell me, he's like, it's just not the way I wanted it to sound. And I was like, okay, like I can't judge you for that. I can't be upset with you for that.
Right.
And I would never be. And as you continue to hear the records change for an artist like Thrice, and I think that Thrice is, if I think of Thrice, I think of this scene. I think of Thrice personally. I think of one of those bands that was able to like come out, they took a hiatus and then they came back and they sounded better than they did before they left. Like, I'm a big fan of Thrice's later. I'm as much of a fan of Thrice's later work as I was the early stuff.
Same here.
But I'll never forget that conversation with Dustin where he was just like, it's just not the way that I wanted it to sound. Because for me, that record was everything that year. Like,
yeah.
If I went to my iTunes and I looked at how many times that record had been played, I'm fairly confident it'd be the most played record in my playlist.
Holy shit!
Like in my entire library, I'm fairly confident. And I thought that record was a masterpiece. But to hear from the artist itself that it wasn't what he wanted to create, I had nothing but admiration and respect for that. Because so many people, it would have been really easy for them to just be like, "Thank you, I appreciate that." But instead, he was like, that's not the way that I wanted it to sound. He knew what he wanted it to sound like. So for me as a fan then, and that was the thing, like, we were touring and playing shows with Thrice, but I was still I would stand out front and I would watch every fucking show because I was a fan of the band. Like, to hear him say that, it was a really big eye opener for me to be like, okay, like, it can't be perfect every time. It just can't. And at some point as a band, you're going to get to the realization that I have to release this record and make it available to other people. And if I don't, it'll never be finished. Like, some songs make it to records that some artists don't consider finished yet. And that's crazy. Like, that's wild. That's a wild thing to consider. So as you hear bands and you hear records change, just be open to the idea that, like, oh, well, maybe I need to change my tone a little bit too.
Now, one of the things I want to ask is, like, when you said, like, I agree with you that Casually Dressed and Hours are two completely different sounding albums, but, like,
yeah,
your indie influence, was that to lean more towards less screaming and more towards more singing, or is it to lean more towards more, I don't know, ambiance and things like that? Like, what was the thought behind that?
Like, if I think about it now, and again, like, I want to make it really clear that it wasn't like there was a ton of thought and intention put into it, but I think hindsight's really good. Hindsight's really good at being 2020, right? So, if I look back at it now, I think it was probably based in just less screaming. Just came down to the types of producers that we were working with, I think.
Okay.
Right, and the types of records that we wanted to release. We never put anything in. We never took anything out or put anything into a song that we didn't think was benefiting the song.
Okay,
not
I
the
can
album,
respect that.
Not the artist.
Okay.
But is this the best thing for the song in this moment? And I think Hours, even on the album Hours, we were still trying to figure that out, because we'd still only been a band for about 4 years at that point, maybe.
We all love the cover of Hours because all we could think of was the fucking Guy Ritchie movie.
Well,
that literally is all we could think of. When we seen the little girl with the fucking vest open, all we were thinking is, like, this is a new. Did Guy Ritchie take a picture for their fucking album cover?
Can I tell you what's really funny? Is all we could think was America.
Really?
Right.
Why?
All we could think. Because school shootings don't happen in the UK.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I didn't even think of that.
It wasn't. So understand that the artwork wasn't a political statement. Like,
okay.
Just to make it abundantly clear for the chat, like for the thread in the chat right now, it wasn't a political statement.
Okay.
It was this very, very striking image of a young girl in a school uniform standing there in a bulletproof vest in front of some lockers.
Okay.
Right? Like, it's a very striking image. Like, the intention isn't to convey the message of this is what school looks like in America. That's not what it is, right? Because I think if you take that kind of context, sorry, Bug. If you take today's narrative and today's social climate into the context of this conversation, right? Like, it could be really easy to make it a political conversation. And in 2005, it was a vastly different place and world to a certain extent, right? Like, politically, from a landscape perspective, especially in the United States. But I remember looking at the artwork. So I remember having a conversation with Barney, who was the guy that designed the artwork for Casually Dressed in Deep in Conversation, and we were big fans of Storm Thorgerson as a design. So Pink Floyd.
Casually
He's done
Dressed
a bunch
album
of
cover
different.
was fucking so cool looking.
It's great.
And
It was so
literally
cool.
when we seen that cover, we looked at it and we were like, okay, this is interesting enough to just at least listen to the band, because that's a fucking
And
cool
that was the
cover.
idea. That was the
Okay.
idea, right? Like when you think about, like, it's not like 2021 where like it's all about MP3 and streaming. Like we were talking about, how do you capture the attention of somebody on a shelf
Yes.
in a record,
Which
in
no
a
one
record
fucking
store.
understands anymore.
In a record store. By the way, guys, there used to be record stores where you could go and buy CDs. You don't do that anymore.
Yeah, I miss that so much. I don't think people really understand that.
I miss
like,
it a lot.
I miss it so fucking much. And like vinyl became really popular again. So like that's sorta feeding people's need, but like I don't know.
A little bit.
I just liked going in and seeing, like, in New England we have Newberry Comics, and it's one of those places where you look and you're like,
right. You gotta go, right?
Yeah, and you're like, what's the fucking releases this week? Oh, they released an album? I didn't know that.
Right.
Nowadays you're like, oh, they put it on Spotify. I guess I'll just fucking listen to Daily Radar.
I know. I still buy my records, and I still buy my vinyl from Tower Records online.
Awesome. That's
like
awesome.
my vinyl collection is mini but mighty. It's got some gems in it. So like I'm very selective about what I choose to purchase in a physical copy. But no, I still buy my records from Tower. Like I'll still give that my best shot. If not Tower, my local record store is Zia or 11th Street Records downtown. Like I can't recommend them enough. Like especially the guys at 11th Street, they know this shit too. So
it just clicked in my head. Old Vegas, Banger Brewing.
Yeah, Banger Brewing's down there too. Yeah.
So, I had to go out there a long time ago for a conference, and it was right when I met my now wife, and I was like, I'm gonna stay in Old Vegas because I don't want to stay on the Strip.
Stay downtown.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Because it's the Strip. I get it.
And
the Strip's a little.
It got a little ridiculous. Yeah. So like Old Vegas, I thought was like the fucking Wild West. So like being in that
straight up
old area and seeing people on zip lines and shit, I'm like, this can't be real. You know what I mean? So
yeah, it's zip lines with the entire thing being under a digital
like a
display.
Dome. Yeah.
Like a dome. Yeah.
So like I forgot where I was going with that.
We were talking about
See, we're both good at this.
We're just talking about new school Vegas and old school Vegas. You're talking
old
school Vegas.
So like going to Banger Brewing, I had such a respect for them because at the time I hadn't been a professional brewer. I was just a home brewer. So going out there and seeing these guys start out when the craft beer scene was just starting to pick up steam was so rewarding. And like every time I've gone back out to Vegas, I try to make it a point to at least go in and get like a flight from them. Because like I'm a big fan of supporting local businesses, and like that's sort of like why I want to continue doing this podcast / interview thing, because like I'm only in New England, but it's almost that game of 7 Degrees to Kevin Bacon. Like if you've ever heard of it, like you can always get back to Kevin Bacon in a fucking movie just by going through a couple actors or actresses.
Yep.
And it's so crazy because it's like the people that have given me the time of day to interview them and I've scheduled is like so like you having said yes is like a fucking brain melt for me. I know it's easy. It's not a big deal to you, but for people that grew up listening to you, it's a big deal. So like I have a lot of friends
I can appreciate that.
Even if they're not in stream tonight, they're gonna text me tomorrow once I upload the YouTube, and they're gonna be like, dude, Gareth was so fucking cool to listen to talking, and you know he's got the accent, so that makes it even better. First person with an accent on the podcast.
The accent carries for a little while. It'll get really fucking old fast. I promise. Like eventually, it'll be like, this guy talks too much. He's got to shut up.
No way. No, it's you could be worse. You could have a New England accent where there's no R's, Everything runs together. You
Pack the
sound
cat.
yeah, you sound fucking angry for no reason because it's cold over here and rainy all the time. You know what I mean?
That's British, buddy. It's the same thing.
I feel like it's a more pricky version of being British.
How many times have you been to the UK?
Never. Is it a little worse?
I'm not saying anything. It's fine. Let's not make it too controversial. No, it's not. Here's what I'll tell you. Like, listen, I've been to Boston a number of different times. I've been to New England a number of different times, right? And I've always enjoyed my experiences there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's fine. I think everything's relative, which is why I say
Yes.
travel as much as you can. Like, go see different parts of the world, go experience different places, different cultures, because you'll identify exactly how quickly and how small your mentality really is. Because you're limited by your experiences. So go see as much as you can.
So
like,
I feel like a lot
it.
more people need to hear that. You're limited by your experiences because like
Right.
I'm a big fan of like most people. I feel like most people in America are cookie cutter when it comes to like food and things like that. So like me and my wife are sort of like no. I don't want to go to. I want to go to a fucking hole in the wall. I want to go to a hole in the wall because I know that hole in the wall is going to make the best version of that dish. You know what I mean, or something like that.
Yeah, give me the and listen. Like I live in Vegas, right? So you got to remember that Las Vegas Boulevard is based on a premise of being anywhere else.
Tacos El Gordo.
You know. Oh. I'm so happy to hear you say that. I'm so happy to hear you say that. Because that's what I was going with. I'm so happy to hear you say that. That's exactly what I thought. But you were like, I need a greasy hole in the wall. My head went to Tacos El Gordo.
See?
To the point that when my fiance moved from LA to be here, that was one of the first places I took her. I was like, we have killer Mexican food. I promise it's gonna change your life. And we stood in line for 45 minutes and she was looking at me like, this better be fucking worth it. And I swear to God, like, it's the shit. It's the best. If you ever, anyone in the chat, if you ever come to Vegas, the first place you should eat is Tacos El Gordo.
Yes.
If you want a good al pastor taco, it'll change your life. It's just the best.
Dude, I got cheek, I got tongue, I got every fucking taco that was weird there. And my wife was so excited because when we were there, a fucking prom rolled up. I'm talking a bunch of limos dropped off a bunch of people.
So were you on the strip then? Would be my guess. You were eating at the strip location? Because I'll take you to the first one eventually, which was on Charleston Boulevard.
Get the fuck out of here.
It's different. It's just different.
Is it way better?
Different. It's different. It's better. it is definitely better. Like because listen, you get the like. There's Carbone in New York City, right? Like my fiance and I, like that's our favorite restaurant is Carbone here in Vegas.
Okay.
She's eaten at the one in New York. She's eaten at the OG, and she's just like, it's just better in New York. Like I can believe that it's just better at different locations. It's always food's always better at the original location, no matter where it is you're eating it. Yeah, fact. Like it's just the truth. So. Like, yeah, the next time you come to town, let me know and I'll take you to the OG location because that's game changing. Like you'll wait in line for 45 minutes, but it'll be worth every fucking bite. I promise.
That sounds so fucking good.
It's
so
good.
I don't want to tie you up too long. We've already gone almost 2.5 hours.
I'll talk the ears of a brass donkey if you give me the opportunity.
Dude, I will talk to you the whole fucking night.
5 hours.
I will.
We can do 5 hours. I don't give a shit.
I'm fucking fuck Joe Rogan. I'll go fucking 5 hours. Forget his 3.5. Fuck that. He'll just start talking about the same thing, like apes and gorillas. Yeah, aliens, gorillas, fucking mushrooms, and lion's mane, and on it. Like I love the guy to death. Like
UFC. You want to talk UFC? I'll talk UFC. Like I can talk Ultimate Fighting Championship like it's nobody's business.
So when we first started talking, and I started doing jiu-jitsu, you had so are you still doing it? When you have time?
Very little.
When you have time?
Like I've been twice in a year, like that kind of time. But yes, do I like to roll? Absolutely. Like, do I enjoy the workout of rolling? Absolutely.
Yes.
I think that it is a different, so I have a Peloton at home. It is a different form of cardio to jump into something like rolling in jiu-jitsu than it is to do something on a bike. I am way more sweaty, way more tired at the end of trying to protect myself for 30
From
minutes,
getting fucking
basically.
choked, yes.
Yeah, from either getting my arm snapped, my leg snapped, or slept on a mat is way more anxiety driven and stressful. But a better release, like if I could, like if I didn't do jujitsu and get injured in one way, shape, or form, whether it's a blister, a burn, or something, or like an hyperextended elbow, whatever it may be, right? If that didn't happen to me more often, I swear to God, I'd be there every night because I still believe it to be one of the best workouts ever. It's just a different cardio workout. And if you've never tried it and you want to give it a shot, give it a shot. And now it's definitely turned into the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah, no shit, right? It's physical chess with dire consequences, whatever the fuck he says. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
But like, it's one of those things. So 14% milk in the chat said, "Talk the ears off a brass donkey" is a funny ass phrase. So,
well, talk the ears of a brass. It's a very British phrase. Right? So talk the ears of a brass donkey. Talk a glass eye to sleep is another one.
That's a fucking good one. I like that one too.
Yeah, I could talk a glass eye to sleep if I needed to, for sure.
So like I started jiu-jitsu at 32 and getting folded up like origami by fucking 16-year-olds. Literally
humbling.
Dude, every time I left class, I'd come home and look at my wife and go,
I'm less of a man
I don't know if I
today than
can
was
fucking
yesterday.
protect you. I got fucking I got middle school students fucking wrapping me up like an anaconda.
Listen, I think without making it too political and diving into things that are like fairly controversial in terms of topic, like I think a lot of people need to go hit a jiu-jitsu mat and be fucking humbled a little bit and just understand your role and where you sit in society in general, right? Like,
exactly.
Like I am crystal clear to know that if push came to shove, I could protect myself and my girl and my kids. Like I'm good with that. If you've got a little bit of training, I am fucked and everybody's dead. There's nothing I can do about it.
My biggest thing, Gareth, is like I look at fucking people's ears now. If you have the 100%, slightest bit of cauliflower,
fuck cauliflower, like,
fuck that.
Give you some space.
Nope. I know you're gonna make me sleep and piss my pants. I'm all set.
Sebastian Maniscalco is a stand-up comedian and has a skit about exactly this. He's like, you can't trust anybody anymore. Like you don't know what people know anymore. It's dangerous. Like it's a genuinely dangerous game. And I can put most people in a knot if I needed to. Like I could put most people in a position that would be like, this is uncomfortable. Like, and that's after just only a handful of sessions for the most part, right? But you look at the guys in the UFC and you're just like, you guys are assassins.
Yeah.
You're just assassin, like you are non-government paid assassins, basically. Like they are.
I feel like it builds so much.
So humbled by it.
It builds so much character, and it
really does.
I think what, and like we say all the time, we're not getting political. We're getting truth here. What we're missing right now is community.
Mm-hmm.
Community,
100%.
And I feel
the company that I work for right now is big on that.
Yeah,
for sure.
So, and that's how the like where I work right now, it's super community based. So, like, if you're showing. And that's the main focus of this podcast, not to keep fucking veering off in different directions. Like I'm
no, of course.
ADD everywhere. But it's like one of those things of like, yes, Barstool Sports is helping who they can with what they can, but at the same time, Dave Portnoy is one fucking guy. He's one guy. There needs to be more people with a voice that stand up that help everybody else. And I think that music, the arts, comedy, you all got fucked over this pandemic. So it's one of those things of like, I feel like there needs to be more people that are willing to go to bat and say like, we need to keep these people around because yes, music is extremely important, but at the end of the day, if you don't have your mental health, you have jack shit.
So like, I'm really happy to hear you say that because I agree with you. Like, I don't think there's enough people focusing on mental health, and like, I'll be vulnerable enough to tell you that like I've been in therapy for well over 2 years for a variety of different subjects and topics.
You and me both.
And the more that people can highlight that, the more they can talk about it, the better. because if you don't think that this last 12 months in any country, I don't care which country it is that you're viewing from, has had an impact or an effect on either your social capabilities, your social life, your employment, like pick a subject. It's been a lot. Like it's been a lot for a lot of different people. And for those of you that work in the entertainment industry, like I tip my hat to you. Like I'm not in that industry anymore, but I can't imagine what it's like to try and have a livelihood through this time frame and this period. Like it's just so difficult and it's just so hard. So like
I literally can't imagine wondering when your next fucking meal's gonna be. And like I'm not gonna explain what I do for a living, but having to deal with it from the start of this fucking thing till now, I feel more for the people that didn't have to do what I had to do.
I work for the largest company in the world. I'm not going to say the name of the brand, right? But I'm really thankful and I appreciate the fact that I work for a company that didn't lay off a single person during this entire time frame.
He works for IKEA.
And I work for IKEA. It's IKEA, everybody.
he writes the instructions for the fucked up assembly just to make you angry.
I work for a fruit stand. Let's say I work for a fruit stand. And if you Google the largest company in the world, it'll be really easy to tell who it is I work for. They didn't lay off a single person the entire duration. And I can't even begin to tell you as a father of 3 kids, right, what that means to me. That I work for a company that was in a position to be able to keep us employed and keep us like paid through that period of time. But for anybody that is going through any kind of hardship right now, like I can't encourage you enough. Like the more that you can connect with somebody that has an unbiased opinion that can walk you through your mentality,
yes,
in a way that can help you understand. Again, when it comes to beer, when it comes to whatever it may be, like when you can break it down to a science, things just start to make a little bit more sense.
Yes.
So like I've been through that challenge. I've been through those things myself over the last couple of years. And I think that it's important for everybody to be able to face those things with objectivity. You've got to be able to look at them a little bit differently, right? And it's funny, like a lot of my therapy actually comes from my band days, because when I quit the band, like that camaraderie, that feeling of belonging and sense of self vanishes incredibly quickly because you're known as the guy that's in the band, right?
Not to interrupt you.
Oh, jump in, please. Get involved.
But when they announced it on MySpace, I don't think you understand how fucking... I know that we always joke about just being the bassist.
Right.
When they announced your departure, I was so fucking bummed. Because I was like... I followed this band from their... Ooh, excuse me.
From inception, for the most part.
From their EP. Till,
oh wow!
And then when you left, you know what I mean,
right?
And then Burroughs replaced you, and then I believe it was the drummer that was next, right? That left, and then someone else. Who was it? Darren,
the guitar player, left next.
Okay, so it was Darren next, and then all I could think in my head at being at that age was their fucking sound is gonna change. It's not gonna be Funeral for a Friend. Because we were used to that happening to us in the local scene. We were like, oh, they got someone else. They're going to sound totally different. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of bands started to lean towards the fucking auto-tune with being like a techno-ish band. And I'm like, okay, if you ever want to lose me as someone that's your fucking supporter, it's sounding like T-Pain and playing fucking like the worst techno I could possibly imagine.
Going back, the band's entitled to feel that way, though. They're entitled to release that record whenever they want.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like going back to the conversation we were having earlier. Like they're allowed to be able to go out and do that.
But what if you're changing for the sense of changing because it's the changing of times, not because it's what you want to write? You just want to be that fucking band that's getting ahead of the curve because that's what's coming.
Do you want that band to exist anymore?
No. I know that sounds like I know that sounds like a fucking asshole, but come on. No, you're doing it for the monetary value, not for who got you to where you are now.
No, you're doing it to stay relevant. Because if you don't stay relevant, you don't get to listen to those songs live anymore. That's it. It's over. It's gone. See you later.
But you don't feel like that's that band anymore?
No. Like it is that band. It is that band. It's still that band, and it's still the same group of people. But to expect like for 3 major members of the band to change and expect the sound to stay the same,
Oh, you're out of your fucking mind.
you're out of your mind. Like
Yeah.
it's just not realistic, right? Like Burroughs' experiences and Bush's experiences are vastly different than mine. And bands are made up of the individuals that form them in real time. So it doesn't matter who you're changing. You could change your drummer. They changed their drummer too after I left.
Yes.
Like Ryan went on to become a manager for other artists and still does a really great job with that today. And then Pat Lundy joined, and now it's somebody completely different, right? So but the sound changed with every single record. But what was interesting for me is that after I left the band, I was able to actually be pretty objective and become a fan of the music.
That's cool.
So like I own the next records on vinyl. Like I have them.
That's really
because I purchased because I purchased them, and I get to listen to those records and be a fan of it, which is insane in reality, right? Like to be able to look at it and have hindsight as 2020 vision for it. I get to look at those records now and be pretty objective about them, which is pretty great. Like I look at Conduit as one of the best songs that Funeral for a Friend ever wrote, and I never had anything to do with it.
That is a really great song.
It's a fucking great tune.
Yeah.
It's a great tune, right? Like, and it wasn't until we recorded Memory. No, it was when Tales Don't Tell Themselves, because we worked with Colin Richardson for Casually Dressed and Deep in Conversation, which was, Colin Richardson had done Machine Head. He'd done Heartworks by Machine Head and a bunch of other like really great metal records, right? And that was the sound that we wanted. We wanted something a little bit more clinical that still had the tunes and the core of the sound at its base.
I feel like Colin Richardson really exemplified the heavy parts of your albums. So from being like a metal,
you'd think, right?
Yeah. Is that not how you felt?
Have you ever seen an interview with Colin Richardson?
No.
What, like, because I think that's the other perception side of it, right?
Okay.
Is that this guy creates all of these records, so he's this like long-haired fucking goth dude that just understands metal music, and he is the softest voiced, gentlest spoken, like most timid man you've ever fucking met in your life, and it's the most deceptive thing about it, right? Like he cares about how it sounds. Like let's identify, like he's big on engineering and exactly the sound quality that he wants to get. So it's a very clinical sound. If you can listen to it, you can listen to any record that he's made, and it's a very clinical sound. Like it's very intentional. Everything's very separated and very.
He's the Rick Rubin of metal. Well, in that
great
sense.
Yeah, great analogy. Like I'll take that, absolutely. I'm sure Colin would take that too. Like I think anybody being compared to Rick Rubin is a very, very blessed place to be in. But yeah, like I love Colin. Like Colin did so much for me and just my bass tone alone, because you got to remember I was not a great bass player. Like there are many bass players in the world that could have done what I done remarkably better and differently.
Hey, we're in the same boat, Gareth. I think that's why we get along so well.
Amen. We all are. That's fine. Like everybody is. If you can't be humble about it, you're an asshole. So like I'll be humble about it all day long. So call it like, again, I was like, when I recorded with Colin for the first time, I was recording through a loaned bass amp. Like I didn't own my own gear.
Right.
So he helped me shape my sound for that record. Like he, I forget the engineer's name now, and I feel like a piece of shit for it. I just remember he was a little skinny and long blonde hair. I remember him well. I can't remember his name, but they helped me shape my sound because they were a part of the growth of that band in a pretty significant manner. So we went from Casually Dressed and Deep in Conversation recorded with Colin Richardson to recorded with Terry fucking Date.
So what was the big difference between that? Yeah, what was the big difference between the two? Was one more eclectic or was one more, was it like...
Yeah, I mean, everything with Colin was 100 different takes. It was play it again, 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 and then build it. like build the record from everything that had been recorded, pull the best parts of the sample, so you get the best take every single time. So we walked into the studio with Terry, and we had multiple conversations with Terry Date, who was, at the time was like Limp Bizkit, fucking Soundgarden, Pearl Jam. Like you go through Terry Date's history of artists, and you're like, holy fuck, how am I supposed to keep up with this? This is bananas. And then we went in with Terry Date, who heard us complain about how, well, I don't want to say complain, but heard us talk about how Casually Dressed sounded quite clinical, or it was recorded very clinically, whereas ours is very much a live record. Like everything was recorded for the most part with all of us playing at the same time in a lot of different ways, and then like overdubs afterwards in certain sections.
Really?
Yeah, very much so.
Okay, cool.
Like if you listen to Drive, the song Drive on ours, like that happens, like there's the intro is Matt getting into Terry's truck, starting Terry's truck outside the studio with microphones outside the car and inside the car, and Matt's got a beer inside the car, and you hear him opening a beer. Like it was super organic, super natural. Like everything about it was built and designed around this idea of like, this needs to sound like a live record. Like we wanted to sound a little bit more organic. Like for the bass parts, I was done recording bass parts in 3 days, 3 to 4 days.
Holy shit.
Yeah, which is quick. It's a quick turnaround time for some of those records, because songs like All the Rage was done in one take. That was one bass take.
Get the fuck out of here, really?
Yep, it's the only one take I have in my life, which is why I remember it. But it was one take, and it was done. It was move the fuck on to the next song. And I remember looking at Terry going like, okay, like, are you sure? Because I know how shitty a musician I am. Are you sure that this is one take? And he's like, that was one take. He's like, you're not going to get it better than that. And I was like, all right, I'll trust you implicitly. And it's the lead song of the record. The very first song of the record, the bass was recorded in one take. And I'm like, all right, okay. Like you can immediately tell it's a very different environment and a very different format that you're recording in. And it's a much more relaxed environment. Like that record was recorded in Studio X, which is formerly known as Bad Animal Studio.
Okay.
And in Pearl Jam studio, Pearl Jam's personal recording studio. So at some point, like Pearl Jam was coming into Studio X. So we were being moved out to go into Pearl Jam's personal recording studio, which is behind a laundromat in Bellevue, Washington, somewhere.
Really?
Like it's the most, oh yeah. Like there's a back door that takes you into the studio where the floor is smashed to pieces, where Chris Cornell was smashing bar stools because he was recording Bad Motorfinger. Like there's just like you're just in a building that's fucking steeped in like musical royalty.
So cool.
So it's it really like looking back on it in hindsight, it's really fucking cool to be a part of the lexicon of that kind of musical heritage and that kind of history that I don't know in real time that I really absorbed. Like again, being almost 40 and figuring this out now, I'm like, I get to look back on it now and be like, what a fucking cool experience. At the time, it was just like, let's record a record. It was like right here. Like we're blinkered right here. And this is where we are. The blinders are on. It's like, okay, like I remember our tour manager, Doug, dropping us off in Seattle when we were loading in that day. And his parting words to us was like, all right, boys, second record, make it good, don't make it shit. And that was his words of wisdom as he was leaving us. I'll never forget it. Make it good, don't make it good, don't make it shit. And I like to think that we did a pretty good job of making it pretty good. Like ours is still one of my favorite records.
You and me both.
Even though I have the demos for some of those original songs, and I think the demos are better.
Really?
Yeah, there's still some of the songs I listen to and I'm just like, oh man, I wish that this could have been different. So there was a Recovery on ours was originally a song called In the Absence of Our Fears. I'll send it to you because I think In the Absence of Our Fears is a better hook than Recovery does. Like I still think that to this day, which is fascinating. Like
that is
15
fascinating
years later.
Because it's one of
like
those
16
things,
years later.
Yeah, it's one of those things that like really gets your dopamine and serotonin level up where you're like, oh no. This is the version that should have been, not the version that we got. You know what I mean? So I feel the same way about some of the songs that came off of 4 Ways to Scream Your Name or 7 Ways to Scream Your Name, whatever you want to say for
Mm,
you. I
sure.
feel the same way about the songs that came first, those first 4 originals, because when they were remade,
Juno.
I'm gonna be honest, I didn't like them as much. I didn't
That's okay.
because
Listen, I listen. Like that level of honesty is necessary for me because like the smoke has been blown so many times that I actually need somebody at this point in my life to be able to tell me like I actually prefer the original
Mhm.
because I actually prefer the original. Going like let's rewind again to the fact that I get to be a fan of the band because I got to hear Juno as somebody that wasn't a part of writing the song.
Right,
Like
right.
I wasn't there for the original make. So yeah, am I of the belief that Juno with Matthew Evans as the screaming vocalist on the demo, is that a better version of the song than the one that was on Casually Dressed and essentially became the lead single of the record? Probably, probably, because that was it in its genuine, most rawest form. Like you got to think that Casually Dressed in Deep in Conversation was a reanalysis of that song
Oh, big
with
time.
five very different individuals. So they're actually two very different songs if you think about it. As much as they've got a
I
similar, as
100%
much
agree
as
with
the
that.
word, as much as the word sounds the same, Juno, they're spelled differently and delivered differently for good reason, because they're two different artists. They're two very different bands at the time. So it's strange to be able to sit here and say that a little bit differently for sure.
I really appreciate that because like people
Of
give me a lot
course.
of shit for you sound like that fucking hipster that's like I liked them before they were
Well,
big.
I like them when they were original. Like I get
Yeah,
it. Like I like them when they were original too. But I'm too close to the operation for the second half to be
exactly.
able to be able to say that I prefer one versus the other. But I can still listen to the original, the first 4 songs. I can listen to 1045 Amsterdam Conversations as a fan of the music.
Mhm.
As much as I played that song 50,000 times, and I could like it's probably one of the only songs I can still play because it's just autopilot if I switch
Mhm.
my brain off. I still get to listen to that song as a fan of it.
Right.
And as somebody that can look at it and that wasn't a part of the inception of that tune at all. But there's a reason why it didn't make the record either, because it couldn't be reinvented. It couldn't be changed into a way that we thought that it could be better. I don't think we didn't try to.
Right.
I'm sure at some point we tried to rewrite it in a standard that matched the new members of the band, but it just didn't make sense to do it.
I
Like even Juno on Casually Dressed and Deep in Conversation is different than Juno we played live.
okay.
Like, and I don't know that anybody's necessarily been able to point out some of those differences, but there are very subtle differences that exist between the recorded version and the version that we would play live all of the time. We just never got to record it again. Some songs never get finished.
Right. Right. So
And
like
that's something fans never consider. Fans never consider that idea,
no,
that
a
a
lot
song
of
is never
so like a
actually
lot of
finished.
fans are people who are ingesters instead of people that are
Mm-hmm.
that let it
Of course.
sit or give me 2 seconds. I'm gonna take a pee break. Just 2 seconds, okay?
Same. I'm so happy you said
Okay, good.
it. Be right back, Chad.
I'm the Mermaid Queen, 14% milk, and Chard the Bard. Thank you for being in chat and hanging out and everything like that. I don't know about you, Gareth, but that was a fucking phenomenal pee break.
I mean, I'm only 3 cans in, and I heard recently that breaking the seal is actually a myth. It's just all pretend.
Oh, it's all pretend. It's kind of like fucking performance anxiety. It's one of those things. So
performance anxiety is real, just so you know. So somebody that's really confident in his performance, apparently it's a real thing.
So what are some things that you would like to, so like as we close in on a 3-hour interview, I could go fucking all night because like talking to you is super fun. I mean, I always want to point out to people that are if you're in chat or if you're gonna watch on YouTube, people that make it in the music world are just regular people, and they just 100%. They want to be treated that way. They don't want to be treated like a fucking deity or anything like that. That's why you freak them out. That's why. So like if someone wants to just have a conversation, just leave it at a conversation. Don't tell them that you got their lyrics tattooed on, your genitals or something. Keep it a secret. It's better. Yeah, life's better. Yeah. Just ask the question you want to ask. Don't show them the weird shit you want to show them. They're regular people. They want to be treated that way. So like, Gareth,
appreciate you, Joe.
I appreciate you, buddy. At the end of this interview, what do you want to say to everybody? Like, what are some things you want to leave with people? Because you became pretty well known at a very young age, and for a lot of celebrities nowadays, you see them all fucked up because of that. But I think you turned out pretty good.
Thanks, man.
But it's one of those. It's one of those
Barely
things.
Made the cut. Barely made the cut.
I say that to every band I interview. Like, a lot of you guys played in the developmental stages of us being teens and adults. So, like, we thank you for that because you weren't the band telling us to go do horrible shit.
It was it was developmental for me too. like you got to remember that as well. Again, like I was touring with artists that I was a fan of, because I was new to the scene and I was still, we were fucking kids. Like 24 years old is not a kid. If we're going to go back to the Joe Rogan podcast, everybody that listens to the Joe Rogan podcast knows that the male brain doesn't fully form itself until 24, 25 years old, like the frontal cortex, your decision making. And it's officially become the Joe Rogan podcast at this point.
Exactly.
So you got to remember, I was only in the band until 2007. So until I was 26, 27-ish. So it was a whirlwind of a time for me too. Like I joke about it in my current job now, because the current job that I've been in for almost 12 years, almost 11 years, which is longer than I was in the band for.
Right.
But I'm still known, I'm still known at my current job 12 years later as, oh, you were the dude that was in that band. Like, ideally, I'd like to be known at the work that I'm at now for the work that I've fucking done for 12 years. like would be really cool. That would be nice too. But it feels like a lifetime ago. Like it's a very different time frame for me. And I feel like we talked about a lot when it came to the band, but I don't feel like we'd even scratched the surface in some circumstances. Like there's so much that happens in the day-to-day of a band that is probably more interesting than the what does it feel like to play shows kind of thing. My AirPods are dying. That's how I know we've been on the phone for a while. Is my AirPods are like, I can't do this anymore.
So what if we do this? What if you come back on in the future? We do the same thing. You know what
because
I mean?
I know we only really answered maybe 3 or 4 of the questions that you originally had. Like, yeah, dude, I'm totally down to do this again. Like, let's do it again in a couple of weeks. I'm happy to do so. Let's do a part 2.
Dude, I fucking appreciate you. I really do. And like, it's really cool to see people just wanting to share their experience or share their knowledge, or because I think what's fucking dying over here along with the pandemic is like, I don't think there's a local scene anymore here. And maybe there is, but like, we did the thing of passing out flyers. We did the thing of having a MySpace. You had to have a fucking
Street
top
teams.
8. You had a
Fucking
top 8.
street
It's
teams.
street teams.
Street team.
teams.
What the fuck is a street team anymore?
Yeah, see, so no one knows that. So, like, if you want to come back on in a couple weeks, I will do the same thing. I'll send you the same thing. I'll have the right fucking address this time. I was so mad about that. I was
Send me
so
sours.
thankful. I was so... Sours? Oh, yeah?
Sours. Let's go.
How about we do that? We'll do sours and a Smirnoff Ice, and we can play Russian roulette.
A Smirnoff. I haven't drank a Smirnoff Ice since I was fucking 14. And I'm almost 40. I'll be 40 in September, for fuck's sake. Like, I can't talk about a fucking...
Well, you know what? I will do one thing.
Go.
I'm going to put you on the spot for one thing. If my wife and I come out to Vegas, we are definitely going to hit you up because we would love to go out to dinner with you and your fiance.
You can stay
which will
here.
Be wife.
I have we have a spare bedroom. We have a spare bedroom. I'm not kidding.
Oh,
the most expensive part of coming to the most expensive part of coming to Vegas is finding a place to stay. You can stay here.
You're the fucking man.
Easy.
But like one of those things, I just want to leave you with this before we end this whole thing, is that I want you to know that even though you feel like the UK, you were spoon-fed your experience and that you were getting these shows, over here you were very much fucking appreciated. And you were very much appreciated in the sense that, like, I'm interviewing you because you, during the time period of Funeral for a Friend, were a crucial part of a development of the local scene here. And I know you appreciate it because you're a genuine fucking dude. You know what I mean? You're a genuine dude. You're not here flipping your fucking hair and being like, you know, yeah, man, I fucking did this back in the day. You know what I mean? So that's like my biggest thing is like, I want to show more people that it's okay to like believe in the people that you feel like give you some influence, but also they're regular people. You know what I mean?
100%. Listen, this I like to call as the wall of fame in my house.
This is fucking cool, man. This is cool.
But like, my fiance works for bands that are way bigger than the one I was ever in. Like, so I appreciate you that you can say that, man, because I was always the humble guy when I was in the band, and I will still continue to be the humble guy because I realize how fortunate and how lucky I was. Like, the day, we can touch on this the next time that we speak.
Yes.
But like the day that I quit, like we can talk about that another time. But that was one of the toughest days of my life. To decide
I could tell by the MySpace fucking post.
Oh my God. To walk away from this career, right, is not an easy thing to do. And we can talk about why and how in another time. That's absolutely fine. But like, I was always really appreciative of the fact that I was a small town boy in a small town world that got to experience like a lot of the world. And like, I'm living in Vegas for a reason. It's because I was able to see a lot of that world, right? Like those kinds, when I say like experience the serenity of traveling alone as much as you can and doing it often, as much as we were traveling all of the time, I would try and separate myself and go on adventures and go and see different parts of the world because I didn't think I was going to ever get to see it again. Like, I'm from a town that is incredibly small, and I count my blessings every single day that I get to live in a place where like I kind of get to live my dream out a little bit every single day. As much as my career is a little bit different than what it was, I'm still grateful for it. And I still have my family, I still have my children, I still have all of those things. And it's because of what Funeral for a Friend was able to give me. I met my now ex-wife while I was on tour with Funeral for a Friend. Like, my 3 children are from that relationship and they're from those places. So without being in a band, without having those experiences, without having those luxuries, like I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't be in the relationship that I am today. And I wouldn't be the person I am without the experiences I've had. And I've had a lot of them. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't count my blessings for it. Like, I'm very thankful. I'm very aware of, like you said it really early on in this conversation, is like we were able to capture lightning in a bottle. And it was a time that I don't know that I'll ever get again. And I'm okay with that because like it's about growth and about how you move forward through those things. But I'll always hold memories of being with those 4 other guys. So Darren, Chris, Matt, and Ryan. Like, I'll always hold those memories in the highest of regard. And those records will always hang on my wall somewhere in this house, whether it's a toilet or otherwise. Like, because you're supposed to hang your gold records in the toilet because that's where most guys do their thinking and reflecting. But I'll always walk down that corridor and have a little bit of a sense of pride every time my kids walk down it, even to say like, okay, cool, like we're in a good place. Like I'm thankful for where I am because of what I've been through, and we can talk about those experiences more a little bit later. Because again, I feel bad at the fact that we probably answered 4 of your questions that you had, but I look forward to doing a second round with you for sure.
Dude, Gareth, I really appreciate that. I appreciate you, dude. You're a very genuine person. And not to blow smoke up your ass again, but it is very nice to know that the person I looked up to as a teenager is the same person as an adult. So there's no change. There's no disappointment. There's no anything like that. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's really cool to learn about someone across the pond. And you know, I guess that's the phrase.
It's across the continent at this point, buddy.
Yeah,
like we're just on different coasts.
But I mean, like, it's just so cool to realize that the people you listen to that influenced you to become a musician or to play local shows is just as cool as you thought they'd be. And it's in the sense of being humble, being a human, not being this fucking show, like, you know, showboaty. I did this. I played with Iron Maiden. Like, of course, people are gonna have big dick energy when they played with Iron Maiden. But you were like, oh yeah, we played with Maiden. Like, I kept being like, hey, I know who you played with. I know who you played with.
We didn't even get to touch the surface on what it's like to play with Iron Maiden. So playing with Iron Maiden, if you open for Iron Maiden, you're basically taking up stage time that Iron Maiden has, and everything about their audience knows that. So we were collecting enough coins off the stage that were being thrown at us to be able to get a crew of 50 people fucking hammered every single night while we were on that tour.
Christ.
When we were playing in Sweden, we played at a music venue called the Globen, and I highly encourage you to Google it. And they were throwing hockey pucks at the stage. They were throwing rubber hockey pucks at us. So like I wish that we'd gotten more of a time to be able to talk about those experiences when it comes to touring with Iron Maiden and how we got to that point, because I think it's important to identify that Iron Maiden's management team, which is Rod Smallwood, started a new management company called Phantom, and our manager Craig Jennings was a part of Phantom. So basically we were signed to the same management company as Iron Maiden. Craig Jennings was our manager, but Rod Smallwood was kind of the second hand behind that. Rod Smallwood is Iron Maiden's manager. So that's how we ended up on the Iron Maiden tour. And it was our very first taste of hostility. Like, that was the more character building tour than any other tour we'd ever been on, because we were literally dodging coins. There are dents in guitars that exist still from euro coins that were being thrown at the stage that we were having to use our guitars to deflect them away. Because again, anybody that opens for Iron Maiden, you could be fucking Slayer for all I care. You're gonna hear Iron Maiden chants, and you're gonna get shit thrown at you. There's nothing you can do about it. And they knew that, putting us on that tour. And again, you want to talk about a character building experience, like running around a stage, dodging euro coins being hurled at you at like full speed is fucking next level.
Fuck, that's like getting hit by hail in fucking New England. Being like, oh, these golf balls of ice.
These golf balls ain't no shit. That's fine. We'll take it. Like, I'll take it now. I'll deal with summer, and I'll take it again next winter. But like the Iron Maiden tour, that's what it was like. Like, it was, we would play there's a venue in Sweden, in Gothenburg, called the Globen, and I encourage everybody watching this to go ahead and Google it, and then just imagine that full of people chanting Maiden, Maiden, Maiden. Like, I don't care how loud a PA system you put in it, you can't compete with 20,000 people chanting Iron Maiden.
So
like, we were standing on stage playing, looking at each other going, I guess this is just rehearsal now, because this isn't a show anymore.
So that one show I got to see of Maiden when I graduated high school was a bunch.
You chanted.
No.
You chanted the opening out of the stage. Don't even fucking lie.
I swear to God.
Come on now.
So Bullet for My Valentine opened for them.
Was the opener? Okay.
So
listen, Matt and the boys are good friends of mine, so I get it.
So Iron Maiden started playing, but they were playing an album in its entirety, and every overweight white, I would imagine, seemingly trucker, it seemed like at this fucking show, just kept yelling.
No disrespect to truckers.
No disrespect to truckers. They make the world run. Okay,
hey, you make our world turn.
Exactly.
The only reason this beer is here is because of this.
Exactly.
Thank you guys.
All I could think of, they just kept yelling, "Trooper, Trooper," and you're like, "Fucking dude!" They're only 3 songs into this new album they just released. Can you wait till the encore to yell? Trooper?
We walked onto a stage. I swear to God, we walked onto a stage. I used this as part of the. Tell me about a time you had to overcome adversity for my current job. I used this as the example. I said, well, I walked onto a stage once to an arena full of people. And the minute we hit the first chord of our first song, everybody in the audience turned their back to the stage.
Oh,
that was on the Iron Maiden tour. like I'm not remotely joking. An arena, 18,000 people deep, turned their backs, turned around, just did this.
Fuck
with not as much as a fucking head nod out of anybody. Like that shit is character building. If you're an artist and you walk on stage and you have to deal with that, I'm telling you right now, you walk off that stage going, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, this isn't fun anymore. But that's listen, up until that point, we had received accolade after accolade after accolade. Right. So it was really good for us in retrospect to stand there and kind of take that level of abuse to a certain extent. Like, it was necessary for us to be able to do that, for us to be able to continue to be an artist. And I promise you, ours probably wouldn't sound the same had we not been through that. Because it's tough to be an emo post-hardcore band if everything smells like roses.
Yeah, exactly. And like
right?
We started at the beginning of this, it was like you guys were at the start of this whole thing. So you started the beginning of the wave, and then the tsunami came, and then
we became the wave. We became the wave, part of the wave, before we even realized what our sound was like. So we were already sold into a niche and a genre and a fit. So anything that deviated from that was vastly different. But again, like, we could carry this on for another 2 hours if you wanted to, or we could pick it up another day, whatever you prefer. I'm easy.
Let's do that. We'll talk via direct message, and we'll do that again.
That was good.
And I'll
you have my cell phone number now. I sent you my cell phone number, so you should have my cell phone number.
Oh, okay. So that's your cell phone number now. So I will send you a text message, and I will send you a bigger package next time with a little more stuff in it. Okay.
Sure.
I really appreciate your time.
I'll wear the t-shirt. I'll wear the t-shirt next time. I wasn't sure if wearing the t-shirt was kind of like wearing your own band shirt.
No. Like... People don't get that reference, because when you're on tour and you have your own merch, you're like, I'm wearing this thing because my shit stinks.
I'm wearing this thing because I know it's fucking clean. Yeah, exactly. I'm going to wear my own shirt. I'm going to wear my own band's t-shirt. Not because I'm a fan, but because it's the only shit that's clean.
It's like fucking WWE wrestlers. That's exactly what it looks like when they wear their own shit.
Yeah, the difference is they get fucking paid. Like, bands aren't. So
but at least the bands don't get fucking CTE. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Buy all the merch. Buy all the merchandise. Every band you ever go see. Yeah, like, buy as much as your fucking piggy bank can handle. Like, I promise you, that's the only way your band's gonna survive anymore. So yeah, I encourage it.
All right, Gareth.
Dude, let's pick up round 2 soon. Seriously, so like 3 weeks.
So how about we do this?
2-3 weeks.
Okay, so what I'm doing is June 8th is the next one. I'm actually interviewing a dude that I really respect. His band is so different that, like, it makes...
Who dat?
Astronoid. If you want to listen to a band that's really different, okay, his name is Casey Aylward. He writes most of the music, I believe. We'll find out more on the podcast. But
cool.
If you want to listen to a band that's completely different from everybody else right now,
I dig it.
Listen to Astronoid. I think you'll appreciate it.
I've been listening to Architects from the UK.
Oh,
like, they
fucking so good. So good.
That the new record is excellent. Like I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
Unbelievable.
Like yeah, if anybody that's listening to this currently or is watching this currently, like the breakdown in impermanence is hands down one of the best things I've listened to in many a year. Like I'm a big fan of that band. I think their journey has been exceptional. I think what they've had to experience has been exceptional in terms of a loss of a member, for argument's sake, right? So like no, they're my favorite band right now. And I know that was one of the questions as to what you're listening to currently. They're hands down one of my favorite artists right now, and I highly encourage everybody to go give it a listen for sure. For sure.
Definitely. So let's do that. I will message you, seeing as it's 1:30 in the morning here.
Exactly.
I will message you after work today because it's the next day. What
time you go to work? What time you go to work?
I'm up at 5 a.m. every morning, so I'll be up in 3.5 hours.
All right, so let's make sure the next one happens at 4 p.m. mine
No,
time.
No. That's not a problem. No. Don't worry about
it. Hey, it's a tit for tat, buddy. That's okay. Like I'll figure that part out for you. That's all right. I'll figure that out.
You're a fucking cool dude, Gareth. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate you talking to me and giving me the time to explain all this stuff and how everything's different. But more importantly, I feel like I've almost like gained like a friend that I haven't caught up with in a long time.
Amen.
So it's really fucking cool. I really appreciate it.
So for everybody that's watching, I definitely had to message Joe earlier and be like, I don't remember how our relationship started. Like that definitely happened, but I was just like, did I meet him on tour? Was he in a fucking band that I was on tour with? I had no idea. And then you refreshed my memory and it all came flooding back. But like, dude, like thanks for expressing interest in the first place. This is, I don't know if you know this, but this is the first interview that I've done since I left the band.
Really?
This is the only interview that I've done since I left Funeral for a Friend. Nobody's asked or said boo to a ghost. And that just fucking tells you what it means to be a bass player.
I feel that in my bones.
In your bones, buddy.
I feel that in my bones. So listen,
like, Joe, I had a great time tonight. I look forward to the next one, man. Like, let's speak soon. We'll figure it out.
Thank you very much, Gareth Davies, and I appreciate you, and I hope you have a great rest of the week. And everybody who's listened and everyone who will listen on YouTube, we were going to do this again in a couple of weeks, and we're going to dig more into it. So if you're a Funeral for a Friend fan and you want to learn more about what it was for that beginning of this genre, please tune in for the next one. Gareth, thank you so much. We'll talk more now that I have your number. Yeah, I will let you know ahead of time too what's being released from the place, so you'll have first-hand dibs. Okay?
I'm all about it, dude. Great chatting with you. Absolutely. Enjoy your night.
Same to you, buddy. Have a great night.
Later, guys.
Later.